Hello YouTube, it's Dylan again, and I'm doing another Sonic Month video. This one is Metal Sonic Theory Debunked. I had this one written at the beginning of the month, but I couldn't do it till now, and originally I had it written to where I was going to help prove this theory. Now this theory is the fact that Metal Sonic is actually a roboticized Sonic from another dimension where Eggman actually won. He got this Sonic because he couldn't make any other forms of Sonic work, like he tried Silver Sonic, he tried Mecha Sonic, and none of them were working. They were never as fast or as good as Sonic. Now we're just getting into this theory and we already snagged into a problem. It said that Mecha Sonic was made before Metal Sonic. Mecha Sonic was better than Metal Sonic and could actually go super form, and he was made in Sonic 3. Now, the canon timeline shows that Sonic CD, which introduces Metal Sonic, takes place between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 because there is no Tails, which would mean that this is before Mecha Sonic. So that's already one little problem we have out of the way. Now, when I originally was trying to prove that this could have been true, I dug into the comic books because I know Sonic actually got roboticized in the comic books, and I found out that his roboticized form was called Mecha Sonic, and I found this page showing Metal Sonic from our games being referred to as Mecha Sonic. Now I thought this meant that at least it was true in the comic book world, but it turned out that that was just a typo and was fixed later on, as seen in this picture. This page actually shows Sonic getting roboticized. Now, despite him still being called Mecha Sonic, you can see the difference. Metal Sonic has a hole in his stomach where his jet repulsion goes, and the other one doesn't. The other one is significantly taller than Metal Sonic 2, and he's sturdier built. He doesn't have that red glow either in his eyes. He looks totally like a roboticized being does in that comic. If you read the comics, you would know that Sonic's father in this world was roboticized too. You can actually see how Sonic looks almost identical to his father, but without the curled hair. Another proving fact that this is the true roboticized Sonic. Another thing disproving this theory is you can see through the comics when Metal Sonic is destroyed, Robotnik has to rebuild him. If he was a roboticized being, he'd be dead. He could not be repaired. But you can see in this picture here, he's being rebuilt totally from scraps. He's been blown up, he's been torn apart, he's even gotten upgrades where he turned into a giant dragon in Sonic Heroes. This is not the typical standards of a roboticized being, this is just one of Eggman's machines. Another thing that happens in the comics, but not in the games, is that Metal Sonic is actually manufactured, meaning that he can be rapidly reproduced, as seen in this page right here. Now this takes out all the individuality that the original theory proposed, that only Sonic being turned into a robot could be a perfect match for Sonic. Another thing that this theory went on is that the Metal Sonic wanted Amy, because he actually loved Amy in his timeline and was just trying to save her, and Sonic saved her from him, making it look like Metal Sonic was the bad guy. So he wanted to prove that he was the true Sonic to the somewhat fake Sonic. Now this can be disproven throughout any of the games, media, cartoons. Sonic does not like Amy. I don't care about the fan fictions. I don't care about Son Amy. Sonic is way older than Amy. He does not find her attractive, she's just his fan. So yet again, another bubble popped into this theory. Another example from the games is that Metal Sonic is not the only metal form that Robotnik makes. In Sonic and Knuckles, he made Metal Knuckles, and Metal Knuckles would later on appear in Sonic R. Robotnik also made the Tails doll as seen in Sonic R, so either Robotnik is a time-traveling wizard who has a DeLorean or something, or this theory just makes no sense altogether. And finally, my last thing to prove this theory is false is, in the Nega universe, Robotnik has a descendant who makes his own Metal Sonic called Metal Nega Sonic, and Metal Nega Sonic looks just like Metal Sonic, proving that yet again the Robotnik family is smart and can make their own robotic beings and do not have to time travel and roboticize Sonic himself, because this would be proven impossible. Not to mention that Nega Sonic, as you can see, has a black and yellow color scheme. There's even been instances in the comics where Metal Sonic and Nega Metal Sonic has fought each other, so this would cause them to have a time paradox if that would be the case. Now normally I'm not so mean to theories, but this one caught on so quickly and people were actually considering it to be canon. That's why I've done this video, to slowly tear this theory apart. The truth is, there's no examples from Sega saying that this is true, there's no proof in the comics saying this is true, and there's tons of contradictory in all of this. So, sorry to say it, Metal Sonic is not Sonic from another universe. But hey, it's just a theory. A game. Wait, never mind. Wrong show.
Hello everybody, Dylan here, bringing you a Sonic theory. Now, this is the second time I've come back, so I think I'm going to be able to upload consistently, depending on how long it takes to edit a video. Now, I think this video is going to take quite a bit to edit, so let's begin. This is, did Eggman create Sonic the Hedgehog? This theory centers around Eggman creating Sonic, of course. Now, they said that Eggman created Sonic for good, but I'm going to slightly tweak it so it works with my own research. Now, let's start with the fact that Eggman knew that Gerald was researching into creating the perfect life form, and the perfect life form is a hedgehog. So what if Eggman decided to try to create his own perfect life form? So he starts digging into Gerald's research and seeing that he went to the Echidna ruins, so he decides to go there. There he sees the mural from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or just Sonic 3, where it shows a hedgehog being able to fight a giant robot holding the Master Emerald. It's here where he learns about the Chaos Emeralds and figures that he can use them for a power source for later, and it's also where he finally confirms that he needs to create a hedgehog. Now for this next part, I wouldn't really know exactly how he would create Sonic, but I'm assuming he would create Sonic very similar to how Gerald created Shadow, but because he doesn't have the help of the black arms, Sonic turns out blue somehow. And he's not as strong as Shadow is with the Chaos Energy. But it does make sense that Eggman would create Sonic because how Sonic can tap into Chaos Control, something that a normal animal shouldn't be able to do right away. But he can because Eggman knows Gerald's research in order to let them tap into Chaos Control, as seen by how Shadow can tap into Chaos Control. Now Eggman wants to test out Sonic's strengths, so he puts his friends inside of robots, and it shows him not to just kill things right away because sometimes your friends might be in danger. Eggman goes around building these levels specifically designed to test Sonic's speed and strength. That's why sometimes you see loop-de-loops and sometimes you see these little platforms that go up and down. Each time Eggman's not really attempting to kill Sonic because of all of his weak robot attachments to the Eggmobile at the end. He's just trying to test Sonic to see how well he can do against other opponents. You could almost say that all this is far away from humanity, so no one will see the experiments going on, and that's why you never see any humans in the original Sonic games. Now it's time for Eggman to test Sonic's speed, and what else to test Sonic's speed is with another Sonic robot. So Eggman makes series of Sonic robots to test Sonic's speed and agility. Sonic always comes out on top. Now that he's tested Sonic's speed, it's time to test Sonic's strength. Now at the end of almost every Sonic game, the biggest robot comes out, the strongest robot. This is to test Sonic's strength and planning to see if he can beat someone way bigger and tougher than him. Sonic uses his brain and not his bronze to find the weak spots on all of the big robots, as in Sonic 2, Sonic 1, and Sonic 3. Doing this, he's proven himself to Eggman. After he's proven himself to Eggman, Eggman probably tries to get Sonic to join up with him, but Sonic declines and runs off. So now Eggman is stuck to just finding out Gerald's other research to see if he can recreate any of Gerald's other things he studied about. This is proven when Eggman helps bring out Perfect Chaos in Sonic Adventure 1, and brings out Shadow in Sonic Adventure 2, two things that Gerald has been researching about. But in the end, Sonic's always there to stop him. Now, I like that theory is pretty cool, but let's look at the bad sides, if we will. Now, the biggest flaw is Eggman is an egotist. We can see it by how he prints his face on everything. How come Eggman never told Sonic he was his creator? If he created something as good as Sonic, you'd think he would want to tell people, but he never does. Now, after Sonic Adventure 2, when Shadow basically goes rogue, Eggman tries to recreate Shadow. His Shadow androids are tough, but nowhere close to the toughness of Shadow. If he can't even recreate Shadow, what would make us think that he created Sonic to begin with? Oh yeah, I'm also adding this part in. I know that Eggman created Sonic in Sonic the Comic, but we're not talking about Sonic the Comic. We're talking about the video games, and I've already talked about that before in my Eggman video. You can go watch that now. And finally, most of all, Eggman just wants to build his Eggman Land theme park and take over the world. He doesn't really care about anything else. Yes, he does look at Gerald's research, but only because it helped him further his goal to conquer the world. Eggman wouldn't create Sonic because Sonic wouldn't help him destroy or rule the world. That's just how it goes there. Eggman only wants to take over everything. Why would he make Sonic have a sense of justice and want to fight him? And this is in the story. This is in the theory. The theory even goes so far as to say Eggman programmed Sonic not to kill him. I don't think Sonic would kill Eggman to begin with because of his moral code, so I think that Eggman wouldn't have to tell Sonic that. So that was the did Eggman create Sonic theory. There's a lot of holes in this one, but I thought I would just let you guys decide.
What's a question I get asked all the time? Where does Sonic store all of his rings and Chaos Emeralds? Well, this is one that I found confusing for a while, and I plan on answering it today on DHT. So let's get into it. Now, you're probably asking yourself, where could he possibly keep all this? We know Sonic is covered completely in fur, so he can't have pockets or anything. Well, one of the beginning things that I'm going to state is it could be possibly a pocket dimension, or as writers like to refer it, the Magic Satchel. The Magic Satchel is mostly used by character Deadpool. It's basically a little off dimension that's between reality and non-reality, another dimension, but so small that it can't be classified as its own dimension, most seen used with Amy Rose's hammer. But I believe that the Chaos Emeralds work slightly different than a pocket dimension, and I'm going to explain it right now. Now, when you see Sonic running through a level, he absorbs rings into his body. Now, he doesn't pick up these rings, and they don't just randomly disappear. You can see a little sparkle as they go inside of his body, and when he gets hit, they fly everywhere, meaning that they become a part of him. Whenever Amy Rose gets hit, her hammer doesn't magically fall out of her, so I believe her hammer is in a pocket dimension. Meanwhile, the rings themselves are actually absorbed into Sonic. And this is actually supported by the games and by the comics, because in the comics, Sonic absorbs so much chaos energy from the rings, he can turn into Super Sonic. The Chaos Emeralds absorb into his body, and he takes the energy from them to obtain his super form. And after obtaining so much chaos energy, his eyes literally turned green like the Master Emerald. So I believe that because Sonic absorbs the rings, the chaos energy is allowed to mix in with his body, so he can literally absorb the Chaos Emeralds into his body, not hide them in a pocket dimension or literally put them inside his pocket. To further prove this, look at people like Eggman and Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic and Eggman cannot control chaos energy, they can only manipulate it, which is why Eggman has to carry around the emeralds inside containment centers instead of absorbing them into his body, because he cannot control chaos power and he cannot become one with it, so he literally has to have a way of containing it no matter what, unlike Sonic. Another person we see exhibiting this behavior is Knuckles. You know how big the Master Emerald is compared to Knuckles, it's giant. But when the Master Emerald breaks up into little pieces, Knuckles is allowed to absorb the pieces inside of himself and store them until he can get them all back together. And our most perfect example to show that the Chaos Emeralds literally absorb into your body is Chaos. When Chaos gets an emerald, he absorbs it literally into his body. We can see it inside of him, and he mutates every time he does, until he becomes perfect Chaos, and we can see all of the emeralds that were inside of him until they are ejected. So, where does Sonic store all those rings? Not in a pocket dimension, but inside of his own body. Through using the power of Chaos Control, Sonic, Shadow, and a few others who can maintain and control Chaos Control can absorb rings and Chaos Emeralds and Master Emerald Shards inside of themselves, not store them in a pocket or a pocket dimension like Amy does. And that's it. That's all I have. So I hope— Hello everybody, Dylan here today on DHT, Games, Comics, Theories, and more. And today we are doing a theory, a Sonic theory, but this one's gonna be different because we have a special guest.
Hello everyone, I am the Sega Scourge, the Sonic Theorist, happy to be here on Dylan's channel. I usually formulate my Sonic Theory videos around concepts within the main canon, or focus primarily on the games. So with this theory being centered around a piece of Sonic-related media outside the game franchise, I think it'll be a refreshing change of pace.
Yes, I think it will be too. So let's cut straight into Art Swap Butts People today on DHT.
Overlander scientist and tactician Julian Kintobor headed up the Ministry of War in the Mobian King Maximilian Acorn's regime, and was instrumental in winning the Great War for the monarchy. The king allowed Julian to dismantle the military. From his perspective, this was because the war's end no longer necessitated it, while Julian's true motive was to set up a coup. Julian stole the plans for the roboticizer from Sonic's uncle, Sir Charles Hedgehog, who originally had positive intentions for the device, primarily aiding post-war victims with mechanical enhancements. Julian used the device for his own far more nefarious needs, and with his army of SWAT bots, he captured a large percentage of the Mobian populi and roboticized them, forcing them to do his bidding, overthrowing the king and crowning himself the new ruler, and in a state of ongoing vicissitude, refashioned himself into the infamous Dr. Robotnik we all know now. Now, Sonic and the Freedom Fighters rip through his army of SWAT bots and cybernetic monstrosities to try and save the innocent animals that were turned into tools of destruction against their will, trying to reverse the effects of roboticization and put an end to Robotnik's plans once and for all, taking back Mobius and securing its future.
Wait a second, did you say something about an army of SWAT bots?
Yeah, Robotnik's military badniks, the infantry of his empire.
Well, let's think about this for a second. Robotnik was a scientist who was imprisoned by his own people, the Overlanders. He escapes and teams up with his people's sworn enemy, the Mobians. Now his brilliant plans help dominate the battlefield. He told the king that soon, thanks to his new plan, the war would be over. Then Robotnik arrives with an army of SWAT bots and captures the Mobians to roboticize them. But you already explained that a second ago. The thing that I'm wondering is what happened to Robotnik's people, the Overlanders? Now it's safe to say, because Robotnik is a human, that the Overlanders were also human. Well, whatever happened to them after he took over Mobius? Well, I think that after he found the roboticizer that Charles had hidden away, he went to his hometown or his home country with the roboticizer and started kidnapping his own people, roboticizing them all one by one. These people would go on to be the SWAT bots, which is why he comes to Mobius with an army of SWAT bots out of nowhere. He didn't have a factory yet to manufacture them. He turned his own race into the SWAT bots that now serve him. Now, to further support this, look at how a SWAT bot is built. It looks nothing like the roboticized Mobians. Instead, it looks more tall and has broad shoulders and no tail or any animal features. It looks more like what a roboticized human would look like. If this theory is true, it means that every time the Freedom Fighters rip through and destroy SWAT bots, they're actually killing hundreds of innocent people who were enslaved by Robotnik, just like the animals of Mobius. People literally torn to shreds by Sonic and friends on their quest to stop Robotnik. And this is a truly grim story if this is the case.
That idea may prove to be more plausible than some might think. After all, Julian no doubt held large animosity towards his own kind for rejecting his research and his later imprisonment. Not only that, but if you take a look at the SWAT bots' movement patterns, they're hardly mere machines. They're nimble, multi-jointed, capable of all-axis movement, moving very similarly to that of a standard human being, or rather, Overlander. But while agile, they're not nearly as agile as Robians, and are often seen with grappling hooks or other instruments to help them bypass difficult terrain. They're also not as powerful as later Badnik models, and are only capable of minor feats of strength, mostly relying on wrist-mounted blasters or pulse rifles to do the job, further indicating that the SWAT bots may only be as strong as the anthropoid hosts inside them. There's certainly room for discussion there, but until that time, thanks for inviting me along to help analyze this theory, Dylan.
You're welcome. Glad to have you on here, Sega Scourge. Hope you show up again sometime. Hello everybody, Dylan here today doing a theory, Sonic theory. And today's Sonic theory is gonna be, why is modern Sonic faster than Sonic from Sonic Boom? Now, a question I was asking in my comments on one of my other theory videos is, why is Sonic Boom Sonic so much slower? So let's answer that with 4 possible outcomes today on DHT. Now let's get one of the more odd explanations out of the way, because the ones that I have later are way better, so we're gonna get this one out early so I can tell you the better ones. The first explanations might be because he's too long and lanky. His arms are far too long and his legs are far too long and skinny. He doesn't look like he can support running at such speeds, and if he tries to run too fast, his legs might buckle down to the pressure, and I don't think he could handle it, honestly. Because look at his body. He's much taller than modern Sonic, and he dwarfs classic Sonic. So I don't really know if these longer legs could actually handle running at the speeds that modern Sonic runs at. And modern Sonic is more sternly built, so he can handle the speeds, because he's still got a little bit of pudge on him like classic Sonic. As for with Sonic Boom Sonic, he's way skinnier. Now another one is he could just be lazy. As we see in the cartoon show, Sonic is way more laid back in this version. He isn't really that motivated to do things, and the only time he really gets up to do things is to either help someone out or to stop Eggman, and it really doesn't take a lot of effort to stop Eggman. Most of the time he's just sitting down, watching TV, relaxing, or eating. This could affect him because not working out and not running around like the other Sonic does, other Sonic, the modern Sonic, he's always running around, he's always exercising. He does eat fat foods, but he burns that off by running around and staying fit. Because this Sonic doesn't run around and just sits around watching TV while still maintaining the same eating habits as modern Sonic, it could cause him to be more out of shape and not be able to run as fast. It could be harder for him to catch his breath being out of shape. This Sonic reflects more of the modern teenage boy, and I can guarantee you a modern teenager who just sits around all day eating and watching TV isn't gonna be able to run that fast. So yeah, maybe he's just a little bit lazy. Another explanation is he could be holding back. He could be holding back way more than modern Sonic does. Maybe he's way faster and is afraid that if he shows off his speed, he just couldn't control it. Or maybe he hasn't fully explored his speed yet. So yeah, he could actually end up being faster in later games, but because this is his first outing and they're just showing off the character, he could have just been slow here, because Sonic wasn't that fast in Sonic 1 or Sonic 2, but in other games he ended up blowing up. So maybe he'll get faster as the games continue. And finally, modern Sonic has one thing that this Sonic doesn't have: chaos control. Modern Sonic has been exposed to the Chaos Emeralds for years, has went super for years, and has even been exposed to the Super Emeralds and the Master Emerald and turned into Hyper Sonic. Now, turning into these super forms possibly unlocked hidden speed potential in Sonic and helped him tap into his full speed potential, allowing him to go faster than what he ever could. Because if you notice in Sonic 1 and 2 and 3, Sonic's fast, but he isn't that fast. And from Sonic 1 to Sonic 3, you can already feel the speed building up in him. He's already being able to run way faster than he could in Sonic 1. And in games like Sonic 06, you're seeing that he's able to run at Mach sections now. He can run at Mach speed like it's nothing. So yeah, Sonic Boom Sonic though doesn't get this advantage. He doesn't have Chaos Emeralds as far as we know in his world, and this might end up hindering him because he won't get as much exposure to them as the other Sonic, and he won't be as strong as the other Sonic because of this. We can already tell that there's no Master Emerald because Knuckles ain't guarding it. Now, the Knuckles from the modern timeline doesn't guard it either anymore, but at least at one point he did. The Knuckles from this timeline is obviously more obsessed with bodybuilding than he is watching the Emerald. So what I'm thinking is, and this is the most likely one, is that when Sonic turned Supersonic and Hypersonic, it unlocked hidden speed potential in him, allowing him to tap into speeds far faster than what he ever could. And that explains why in Sonic 1 he wasn't that fast, but by the time we get to Sonic 06 he's a pro. The more time he spends locking into this potential, the faster he gets. It's even shown off in the Sonic SatAM cartoon. When Sonic gets rings, he can go faster. So this could possibly mean that if the Sonic from Sonic Boom ended up learning how to use the full potential of the rings and possibly find the Chaos Emeralds, he could tap into his hidden speed. These are just some possible explanations to why Sonic Boom Sonic is slower than modern Sonic. But in the end, you can make up your own mind, decide what you want to, but no matter what, at the end of the day, Sonic Boom Sonic just isn't as fast as modern Sonic. Believe any one of these you want to, and if you can think of anything else, just comment it down below. I'd love to hear what you guys had to think. And yeah, that's gonna be all for this theory. Hello everybody, Dylan here today, and we are gonna be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. But I'm switching it up this time. This won't be a theory about something that happened in the games, it will be a theory about a Sonic game. So let's jump right into this today on DHT. The game we're gonna be talking about today is Sega Sonic Bros. Now, a lot of you guys may not have heard of this game because it never released, and it's only just now that we got info on it at all. This was gonna be a puzzle game due to release right before Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, my theory is that there was going to be a whole line of these games, and I'm going to show you some proof that I built my research upon. So let's get right into this. Now, what importance does the game hold? Let's talk about its mechanics first. I think that this was going to be a sequel to Sonic Eraser. In Sonic Eraser, you were fighting another Sonic trying to stack blocks and rank as many points as you could. Well, these were just two Sonics, but it could be possible that the other Sonic is one of Sonic's mini brothers from the Sonic Bible. I brought up the Sonic Bible before, I did a whole video on it, you can go watch that. But Sonic had brothers and sisters galore. Now Sega might have been wanting to change this, but I think Sega was trying to implement Sonic's family into the games. Now I think the blue Sonic in Sonic Eraser wasn't just a Sonic doppelganger, it was supposed to be one of Sonic's brothers. And I think the red Sonic and the yellow Sonic from Sega Sonic Bros were also going to be his brothers, and it was rumored that there was going to be a game out, and it's been confirmed that this game was being worked on, an RPG game featuring Sonic's sister. So we'd be getting 3 Sonic brothers, Sonic and his sister. Now this is nowhere close to what they said in the Sonic Bible, but Sega likes to change stuff around. I'm sure that this is what inspired them to make these siblings of Sonic the Hedgehog, and if these games would have actually worked out, I'm sure that instead of a lot of the characters we would have just got Sonic sibling characters. So what happened to the sibling characters after their games failed? Well, let me tell you. Now, Sega Sonic Bros was being worked on right before Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. So what I'm thinking is that Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel were replacements for the red Sonic and the yellow Sonic. You can even tell this because Ray the Flying Squirrel looks very similar to Sonic the Hedgehog. The only reason why you can tell the two apart is because he's got that tail, and all 3 characters play identical to Sonic. And as you know, Mighty the Armadillo was even one of the concepts for Sonic. So it would be very believable that they would take the red Sonic and turn him into Mighty the Armadillo, and take the yellow Sonic and turn him into Ray the Flying Squirrel. As for Sonic's sister, I don't know what she could have been worked into. I could say Blaze, because she's a female character similar to Sonic who shows up out of nowhere from a land that no one knows about, but that feels like I'd be stretching it. In the end, Sonic had siblings, but only outside of canon. His siblings from the Sonic Bible story, and Manic and Sonia from Sonic Underground. These characters aren't canon, but at least they embody the spirit that Sonic was going to have siblings at one point. point. Hello everybody, Dylan here from DHT, Games, Comics, Theories, and more. Now, today we're going to be doing a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory is going to be on Project 2017, so you guys better stay tuned and watch this today on DHT. Now, I know the fans who follow me on Twitter will know that I've been talking about the new Sonic games that are going to be released next year. One of them being Sonic Mania and the other one just called Project 2017. Now, there isn't a lot of information on Project 2017, so I'm going to say that this theory isn't going to be very long, but this is honestly what I think happened and who I think is the reason for this future being destroyed. Now, Project 2017 takes place in presumably Sonic's future, and it's being overrun by giant robots that shoot laser beams. Now, we can't tell exactly what city this is in, but a lot of people have estimated from how the buildings are structured and the bridges in the background that this is New Orleans. We can't guarantee anything, but that's where we'll say it's from. Now, judging by how the fences are spiked and there's tires laying around everywhere, I'm assuming that this city has been under siege for a while. And because it says join the resistance in the trailers, I'm gonna assume that the world, or at least this city, has already been fully taken over by whoever is in charge. Now, who's in charge of this attack? Who's the leader of this new dictatorship? Well, in order to figure that out, we'll have to first take a look at these robots. These robots are massive, way bigger than Sonic and way bigger than most of the buildings in the city. Now, if you look at the structure of this robot, you'll notice that it has gyro spiked hands. That isn't just a normal robot design. That is specifically Eggman's Death Egg robot from Sonic 2. Now, you'll notice that it has the little spots where Eggman's cape would be, classic Eggman's cape. That's very important, and you'll figure that out as I continue on. If you look at the face, it isn't built like Eggman's face. It's just one little eyeball. So I'm assuming that these are being mass produced by the culprit. Who is the culprit exactly? Well, let me get into that. Now, I know what you're thinking. Because you've seen the two Sonics team up, classic Sonic and modern Sonic, in the trailer, you're gonna assume that modern Eggman and classic Eggman teamed up. Well, I don't think this at all. If you paid attention to what happened last time, the plan was really good, but the two Eggmans just couldn't get along. They always messed up each other's plans. I blame the modern Eggman for this failure. Modern Eggman's plans tend to be really big and creative, but they always tend to have something wrong with them. A little flaw that always makes Sonic be able to stop him with ease. He isn't the same guy that he used to be. The old Eggman, the classic Eggman, he built a napalm machine. He bombed a whole forest. He destroyed hundreds of lives. He took animals and turned them into robots. This newer Eggman, we see that these robots aren't powered by animals. Eggman doesn't really try to build a Death Egg anymore. Eggman isn't even focused on taking over the world really anymore. The closest he's gotten to is in Sonic Colors, where he was saying he was going to use his mind control ray to take over the world. But I still don't believe that he would have been able to succeed, especially inviting Sonic to his base. It's like he's setting himself up for failure. I really just don't believe that modern Eggman will be the villain of the next Sonic game. So you may be asking yourself, if Eggman isn't the villain of the next game, then who is? And I'm saying Dr. Robotnik, aka Classic Eggman. If we see the final cutscene in Sonic Generations, the two Eggmen are bickering, and Classic Eggman's really disappointed in how modern turned out. He knows that he's a failure. He knows he's gonna grow up to be a failure. I believe that this caused the shift in time, and that Classic Eggman started to motivate himself to do better. Classic Eggman decided to step up his act and finally take over the world. He mass-produced his Death Egg robots, the most efficient machine he's made thus far. If we look at modern Eggman, he has plenty of better mechs than the Death Egg robot. So I'm saying this now. The city that they're in is in classic Sonic's world, and the Death Egg robots are made by classic Eggman Eggman to take over the world, and he has obviously succeeded. And now modern Sonic has been dragged back to classic Sonic's time to help save the future, because if this Eggman is allowed to permanently rule, it will destroy modern Sonic's future as he knows it. So they must team up to help take back their future and put Eggman in his place again. And that's my theory. Classic Eggman, seeing his modern self and how he's failed to do anything in the next 20 years, decided to take the future into his own hands and rule over his world, step up his game, improve his robots, and actually do what he wanted to do. And now it's up to modern Sonic and classic Sonic to save the world yet again. I love playing as Sonic the Hedgehog, the fastest thing alive. Now all we gotta do is catch Robotnik and then this is all over with. Wait a second. How fast is this guy? Now, if you played the classic Sonic games or Sonic the Hedgehog 4, you may have thought to yourself, how can Eggman outrun Sonic the Hedgehog? He's supposed to be the fastest thing alive. Well, just like with my Why Modern Sonic is Faster than Sonic Boom Sonic video, I have a few explanations that could give reasons to why Eggman is so much faster than Sonic in the classic games. So let's get right into that today on DHT. Now, one explanation I've heard tossed around is he has robotic legs. Now, this one's mainly popularized because if you watch Sonic Sat AM or read the Archie comics, Eggman has had robotic attachments several times. The classic Dr. Robotnik had a robotic arm, and the modern version of Eggman who appeared in the comics before the reboot had a full robotic body. So if Eggman's gonna be dealing with an enemy as fast as Sonic, maybe he decided to amputate his legs and give himself new robotic attachments. I mean, it doesn't seem too out of proportion, seeing how he made Metal Sonic who can run as fast as Sonic, and he's made Moto Bugs and plenty of other badniks to keep up with Sonic. Maybe he realized that as a last-ditch effort, he would have to run faster than Sonic, so he took the ultimate sacrifice and cut off his own legs and gave himself robotic attachments. Now, this would seem likely, but there's one thing hindering this. Classic Eggman is somewhat shorter, well actually way shorter, than modern day Eggman. So, unless he gave himself new robotics legs to match up with him supposedly growing, this theory is basically debunked. And I don't see why he would give himself longer legs if he has no need to grow. Another thing is, if Eggman can run faster than Sonic, or at least as fast as Sonic, why does he need things like the Eggmobile? Why would he need these multiple ways of transportation if he's faster than Sonic? Well, one thing that you could say is he's lazy, but I'm not gonna have that. That seems like a cop-out. What if instead of him being lazy, he's using some type of power-up like the Power Sneakers? Now, we've seen these Power Sneakers littered all over the classic Sonic games, and even in Sonic Labyrinth, there was slowdown shoes. What if Eggman has a capsule ready on hand and hits it right when Sonic's about to get him? What if he has some way to give himself temporary speed and it'll wear off quickly, so he has to run as fast as he can to get away from Sonic? This could be likely, and it would explain why most of the time he is just being lazy and flying around in Eggmobiles, because he doesn't have unlimited capsules and he doesn't have unlimited speed. Another possible explanation is, during one of their fights, Eggman could have possibly extracted DNA from Sonic and has been genetically modifying himself. This one seems very unlikely because I haven't seen him ever mention having any expertise in genetics, but it's just something I would want to bring up. And there's one last theory that I have to mention that seems the most likely out of all of these. And what is this final theory, you guys may ask? Is it going to be something insane like he can harvest Chaos Emerald energy or something? No, it's nothing crazy like that. It's that Eggman actually isn't faster than Sonic. Now you guys are saying, oh my god, Dylan, that breaks the whole sanctity of this video. You lied to us. No, just give me a second. This is why Eggman is faster than Sonic. And I'm still gonna tell you. Sonic slows down because he doesn't want to hurt Eggman. Sonic's had plenty of chances to full-on murder Eggman. If he wanted to, he could just pummel Eggman to death anytime, anywhere. But instead, when Eggman Eggman's fleeing from him, he gives Eggman the chance. He lets Eggman run ahead of him. He lets Eggman have the edge, because if he did run as fast as he could possibly hurt the guy. I mean, look at him. He's got skinny little thimble legs. He's got a round egg-shaped body. He doesn't work out. He's not really apparently fast. What if Sonic is just slowing down? And this could be supported in Sonic the Hedgehog 4. You don't even have control of Sonic, so you don't know how fast he's going. If you had control, you could spam the homing attack and run faster than him. So the game took control away from you because it doesn't want you to run faster than Eggman. Now, I know the real explanation is if Sonic killed Eggman, then the game would be over and they want to make more games. But I do feel like that this last explanation really solves the whole mystery. Eggman isn't the fastest thing alive. Sonic just happens to be pitying him. He doesn't want to hurt the guy. And it's seems really obvious with the frenemy relationship they have. Hello everybody, Dylan here today, and we are going to be doing a Sonic theory. Now, I know what you're saying, is it that 2017 theory I was hinting around at on Twitter? No, that's being moved till next month. This month, in honor of the new NASA movie it's being worked on, we're going to be talking about fusion, if it's possible, and how it might work in Sonic the Hedgehog, today on DHT. Now, I fully understand the appeal to fusion. Fusion is where you take the best parts of two characters you really like and mix it together into one badass character. Now, fusion isn't anything new to the Sonic the Hedgehog fandom. People have been wanting to fuse characters together for years, but no one's really given a good explanation of how it might work. So today we're going to be talking about one of Sonic's main comparisons, Dragon Ball Z. Sonic has borrowed a lot of ideas and concepts from Dragon Ball Z, as the Chaos Emeralds being similar to the Dragon Balls, Super Sonic being similar to Super Saiyan, Trunks being similar to Silver. There's a lot of ideas borrowed from Dragon Ball. So we're going to be talking about how fusion works in Dragon Ball. Then we're going to be talking about a whole different type of fusion that might be actually possible in the Sonic the Hedgehog games. Now, the first type of fusion we're going to be talking about is the fusion you can get through doing the fusion dance in Dragon Ball Z. Now, this requires for both people to lower their powers to the exact same level. Then they do a dance, touch fingers, and then they fuse. This fusion is limited, and depending on how strong the fusion is how quickly it'll run up. If you're fusing into a Super Saiyan 1, it could last up to 30 minutes. If you're fusing into a Super Saiyan 3, it would be way less. So, knowing this, would it work with Sonic the Hedgehog characters? It actually could work. If there was some type of dance out there, it's very likely that they could just do this dance and have similar power levels and fuse together. Would this fusion be practical? Not really. It screwed over a lot of people in Dragon Ball, mainly Gotenks that make sure Goten and Trunks. So I wouldn't really like this fusion because it's way too impractical and majorly screws people over. Now, the next set of fusion we're going to be talking about is the Potara earring fusions. Now, Goku is given a set of Potara earrings by a Supreme Kai, one of the gods of the Dragon Ball Z universe, and with these earrings you put one earring on one ear and the other guy puts the earring on the opposite ear, and then the two fuse forever. You lose no power in this fusion, you actually gain a boost from this fusion, but in result you become a whole new being and you're stuck that way forever. The only reason why Goku and Vegeta split up is because they went inside Boo's stomach and it separated them. The only reason why Supreme Kai was able to split up recently is because he made a wish on the Dragon Balls. So would this fusion technique be practical for Sonic? If there was some type of god out there, I highly doubt it in the Sonic universe, that could fuse these two together forever, it would give them a power boost and they might be able to destroy the foe they're fighting, but being stuck together forever seems ridiculous, and there's no Dragon Balls in the Sonic universe, and the Chaos Emeralds don't grant wishes, so they would literally be stuck that way forever. You would be stuck with a Sonic Shadow or Sonic whoever fusion forever. So I don't think this fusion technique would be practical for the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, where the status quo is law. Now, splitting apart from Dragon Ball Z for a second, we're going to be talking about Steven Universe. In Steven Universe, there's these beings called gems, and these gems can do a dance not similar to the Dragon Ball Z dance at all. You only have to connect spiritually in this dance, and their beings mixed together into one. Now, you're wondering, Dylan, if Sonic the Hedgehog characters are living beings and not gems, how could they do this fusion? Well, Steven is a gem-human hybrid, and he's able to fuse with other humans and other gems. So there could be some possibility that Sonic would be able to tap into some chaos energy of some type and fuse together, which our next fusion is going to go more into this. Now, our next fusion and our final fusion is shown off in the Nazo movie. Now, this fusion, if you watch it the first time, it can be really confusing because they just kind of clash together and then they're one. But in reality, what happened is that they tapped into some form of chaos control that temporarily mixed their beings into one, transforming them from their regular super forms into this hyper fusion form that gave them basically unlimited power. Now, in this form, they were impervious to damage, they could move faster than what we could even keep up with, and they were able to defeat a being charged up with all the Chaos Emerald energy and Master Emerald energy, which means that this form is majorly overpowered. They were able to stop Nazo like it was nothing. Meanwhile, Nazo had already knocked out them and all of their super forms, fighting him all at once. So that means that this character is beyond broken, and there's no way that he could ever work in a video game. Now, if I had to say which one of these fusions are the most practical for Sonic, it would either be the fusion dance or the chaotic fusion from Nazo Unleashed. These fusions seem like they're the most practical and they're temporary, but one of the things is it makes Sonic a little bit too overpowered. One of the things that people criticize the Sonic games for already is that Sonic can just turn to Super Sonic at any time and beat whatever villain it is. If he had this fusion form just sitting back on, then that would mean that he's even more overpowered and there's no suspension to the games. And from how 2017 is looking, he's actually going to be fighting a foe that's worthy of him. He's going to be fighting someone that is going to take more than just turning Super to defeat him. I don't think whipping out a fusion would really help Sonic. I think it would really hinder Sonic and make him more unrelatable. It would basically be a Superman effect on the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, and we really don't need any more overpowered super forms. So in the end, do I think fusions are possible in Sonic the Hedgehog? Yes, they are very possible in Sonic the Hedgehog. They could come up with the chaotic fusion or anything else. It's Sega. They can whip out any plot hole they want to make these characters fuse. But is it a good thing? No, I don't think it's a good thing, and I think it should just be left to fan fiction like Nazo Unleashed. But I hope I answered some questions about fusion for you guys today and how it might work if it was even possible in Sonic the Hedgehog. Hello everybody, Dylan here today. We are going to be doing a Sonic Theory. Today's Sonic Theory is going to be especially spooky because we are going to be talking about who and or what Sonic.exe is today on DHT. So yeah, despite Sonic.exe being around since 2012, it seems that a lot of people are still confused on how he became who he is and what exactly this being is. It goes all the way from him being a robot, to him being possessed, to him being Zalgo. It's all insane, so I'm gonna help clear up some misconceptions today. The first one to tackle is that Sonic.exe is the real Sonic. Sonic is running around killing his friends. This is the same Sonic from the video games that we know and love. There's two theories that go along with this one. There's the Sonic's possessed, which means that some type of ghost or demon is possessing Sonic's body and making him kill his friends against his will. And then there's the Sonic turned evil, either from power or mind control. I'm gonna debunk this really quickly with, in some of the versions of Sonic.exe, not all of them, depending on if you're getting an older version, you might not be able to do this, but there is a level where you can kill Sonic as Sonic.exe. There can't be two Sonics in the same place if he's possessed or if he's just a Sonic turned evil. So I'm debunking those two right away. He can't be either of those. Number 2, Sonic.exe is either a new type of Metal Sonic or a new type of robot altogether. Now, because some people see that he has black eyes and red glowing pupils, that he has to be Metal Sonic or some type of new Eggman robot that we've never seen before. He can fly, he has comparable speeds to Sonic, and he has super strength. Now, I know that you'd be thinking this, but let me prove that wrong. First of all, he has realistic claws, not sharp metal fingers like Eggman robots tend to have. He doesn't shoot any like guns like an Eggman robot would. He has his own special chaotic powers. I'm not saying he has chaos powers. I'm saying he has some type of weird demon powers. He can also teleport. He can send people to other dimensions. He has his own dimension. And there's one more thing that kind of debunks this all straight up. Look at his eyes. You notice something dripping down from them? That's blood. I'm pretty sure robots don't bleed, so that kind of ruins the whole he's a robot theory right there. Our next one, because he's dark, black, evil, can shapeshift into other characters, and wants to kill Sonic, maybe he's Mephiles the Dark. Now, let me debunk this one really quickly. I know I've heard this one pop up every now and again. There are some key differences between the two. Mephiles wanted to become whole. That was his whole thing. If he couldn't be whole, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to take over the world, and he had no interest in killing all the other characters just for no reason like this Sonic.exe is doing. And another thing is, when he goes into a more pure form, when he's killing people, he has crystallized skin and crystallized eyes. Sonic.exe does not have this. He has pure black eyes with red pupils. And one last thing that makes me think that Mephiles couldn't be Sonic.exe is Sonic.exe has a mouth. Mephiles doesn't have a mouth, and this isn't Sonic 06 being shitty. Well, it is, but this is just character design. Mephiles doesn't have a mouth, while Sonic.exe is known for his mouth. He has a large crooked smile with zigzag razor teeth. So yeah, I don't think he could be Mephiles. You may say that he's Sonic from another dimension. I could give you this one, but the question is, how would he obtain these powers? Sonic has never been able to fly in base form, and this Sonic.exe Sonic shows off way more powers. He can teleport, he can bend reality, he can warp through dimensions. He has so many powers that Sonic can never dream of having. Even Dark Sonic and Sonic X, even Dark Sonic didn't have these type of powers, and even then, all of Sonic's super forms have always had a limit, while .exe has always been unlimited. So I don't think Sonic could ever achieve these powers on his own, so I'm debunking that one right there. And now, before I reveal the true identity of Sonic.exe, I'm gonna mention the one that's the closest to being what he actually is, and that's Sonic.exe being Zalgo. Now, Zalgo is a being that infects things that people know from pop culture, like Garfield and famous other comic book characters, video game characters, or book characters. This seems like something that Zalgo could definitely do, but there are some key signs that Sonic.exe isn't Zalgo. Now, excluding the animations, Sonic.exe has never been shown to have tentacles, which is one of the main Zalgo traits. Another thing is, Zalgo is always pushing a message. He comes soon. Zalgo is coming. Sonic.exe has never preached this message. So right there, I can say that this definitively is not Zalgo, because Zalgo is only there to deliver the message of Zalgo's approach, which Sonic.exe has never done. He only wants to kill things, so I really don't think he's Zalgo at all. In reality, he's a being that's born outside of our universe in a void. He saw us, observed us, and looked at our culture. Eventually, he came across Sonic the Hedgehog. He became obsessed with him. He ended up molding his world around Sonic the Hedgehog's image, and even took the form of Sonic himself, kind of like Mephiles the Dark. But because the being was so evil, he became a dark, twisted version of Sonic. And now he realizes that through technology, he can open up portals to his realm. These portals can be opened up through the Sonic.exe game disc. Now, just having a version of Sonic.exe on your computer doesn't mean that he can get you. You have to have a disc. The disc is the only thing that can temporarily open the portals. His main goal is to merge our worlds with his, so he can have all the humans he wants to play with forever. But till then, he's gonna keep using the disc to drag people in and play with them and kill them. So this isn't actually Sonic. It's just a big fan of Sonic from another universe that took his image and decided to make people play his little game. He's not actually Sonic. Hello everybody, Dylan here, and today we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. So I hope you guys are ready, because today we are looking into the Chaos Emeralds and how they work in Sonic 06. Stay tuned today on DHT. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why care about Sonic 06? Sonic 06 sucked. It didn't introduce anything new with the Emeralds. They've always worked the same. But that's where you're wrong. Sonic 06 did suck subjectively, but the Chaos Emeralds don't work the same way in that game. In fact, we learned something entirely new about the Chaos Emeralds that everyone has been completely overthinking. Now, I seen a video, or a few videos actually, trying to explain how the Chaos Emeralds ended up where they were through time travel. But here's the thing, even when you do that, it makes no sense how Mephiles can just obtain them all in the end. It can make sense though if you dig deeper in the Sonic the Hedgehog lore. Now, how you normally expect time travel to work is, if Sonic had a blue emerald and he went back 15 seconds ago using Chaos Control, he should bump into himself with a blue emerald. So now there will be 2 blue emeralds. But that isn't what happens, because it turns out that Kid Elise was given the green emerald, and she said she held on to that for most of her life. Now, how could she have the green emerald if they had the green emerald multiple times in the past when she was supposed to have it? This would break the rules of time travel. There should now be 2 green emeralds, but that isn't what happened. Instead, we see people going back to the past, and somehow they now have the green emerald. It should make no sense of how they could get that emerald if they weren't in possession of it originally. And now there should be 2 emeralds, but instead there still remains the one that that person has. You may say that this is unexplainable, but if you look deeper into Sonic the Hedgehog lore, it can be explained pretty easily. In Sonic Rivals 2, the Master Emerald is being described as a transcendent object, meaning that it exists in all places and time at once. And if you take it from one place in time, it disappears throughout all places in time. Well, what if the Chaos Emeralds work in a similar way to the Master Emerald? After all, the Chaos Emeralds were created by the same deity that created the Master Emerald, so it's not totally out of logic to say that they would work similar. Now, since we know the Chaos Emeralds are transcendent objects, we can rethink how the Emeralds work in Sonic 06. Now, let's go back to our thought experiment. Sonic has the blue emerald. He travels back in time 15 seconds. So of course he's gonna bump into himself, but this time, instead of having 2 blue emeralds, one of the emeralds quit existing and turned into the main emerald. So, how can we determine who would be the one holding the real emerald and whose emerald would quit existing? It's purely by chance or by plot's sake, because sometimes people from the future go back into the past and now they have the only green one. Sometimes people from the past go into the future and now they have the only green emerald. It's really just up to luck on whose emerald ceased to exist and whose emerald now exists. So basically what I'm saying is, if you have an emerald and you go any place in time, chances are you will lose your emerald or someone else will lose that emerald. The emeralds can't exist both at the same time. There can't be 2 green emeralds, there can't be 2 red emeralds. One has to quit existing. It would be way too overpowered if these objects could exist, because then theoretically, someone could travel back in the time multiple times and have 6 set of Chaos Emeralds. That's not how the emeralds work, and that's not how the Master Emerald works. Because if the Master Emerald is stolen from any place in time, it quits existing altogether until it's returned back. Now, this is complicated, but I do believe that this is how time traveling works with the Chaos Emeralds. It's really simple, but yet really complicated. And if my theory is right, then all those videos trying to track the emeralds are now completely useless, because they don't go by the rules of logic you would normally expect them to. Normally, you would expect if you have a rock and you travel back in time to meet yourself, you both will be holding the rock, but that's not how it works with Sonic. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Today we are doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's theory is pretty short. Normally I wouldn't cover one this short, but because it's Valentine's Day, I'll make an exception. Today's theory is, will Son Amy work? Now, there's plenty of Sonic and Amy's. The one we are going to be talking about is the Archie comic Sonic and Amy. And this is pre-reboot because there's more to work with, and I really haven't read past the reboot, and I don't know if I want to, seeing how the direction the stories are being taken. So, let's get into this today on DHT. First of all, Sonic and Amy from the comics are much different than their video game counterparts, even though they look similar. Amy originally looked like her Sonic CD form, and was about as young compared to Sonic, who was a teenager at the time, until she used the Ring of Acorns to age herself up. But even though she became about the same age as Sonic, she was still immature like a child, which is why her affections towards Sonic seem very immature and not developed. It could be the fact that she just rushed through puberty and she doesn't know how to handle these feelings that she has for him now. But she does definitely have romantic feelings for Sonic. This can be showed off when Scourge impersonated him. He asked her out and she immediately said yes. If she did just see him as a friend, she would have rejected him. But despite her having romantic attachments towards him, she still is independent and she still can fight for herself. In the Archie comics, she isn't just someone who gets kidnapped. Most of the time, she's one of the people on the front lines. She even helps her cousin Robbo the Hedge out on his missions all the time. So she is strong and independent. It's just sometimes her feelings for Sonic get in the way. So now, since we got Amy's feelings for Sonic understood, we have to look into Sonic. And for Sonic, it's a little more obvious that he doesn't want to be with Amy. First of all, let's start with the argument everybody uses for the video game Sonic. Oh, he's just shy and he's not ready to admit that he likes Amy. Yeah, you have a point for the video games, but not with the comic books. Let me give you multiple examples of girls Sonic's been with and openly hit on in front of everybody. First of all, the best example, Sally Acorn. He was with her for the whole run of the original comics off and on. He had been seen kissing her in front of everybody, holding hands with her in front of everybody, fighting in front of everybody. They were so obviously a couple. Second example, Bunny Rabbit. This relationship wasn't as long, but still, he was very open with it. You can see him kissing her in front of everybody. He was not shy there. He also had a kind of thing with Mina the Mongoose, but with that one it's more implied than anything, and they didn't end up together, so we'll let that one slide. But another relationship he got into was with Fiona the Fox. He got with her because he felt like she was a bad influence for Tails, and he just wanted Tails to move on from her, but still, he got with her. He showed affection towards her in front of everybody, and he was still a little bit hurt when she turned out to be a bad guy. He's even hit on Nicole, who is a hologram. There is no girl that Sonic will not hit on, even if she's a robot. And my final case is in the Archie several years later comics, where it looks into the future. Sonic is always seen with Sally. They have done this multiple different times, and Sonic always ends up with Sally. And I'm sure that if they choose to do this with the modern comics, he will still end up with Sally. Now, I know what you're saying. Dylan, I can pull up several panels to show that Sonic has been affectionate towards Amy, and you'd be showing the same panels that I'm showing. But do you notice something about all these panels? Sonic is bragging about how he just saved her. It's an ego trip. He wants to play the hero. It's nothing to do with affections. And you can even see in this panel that he's being just like Sonic in the video games and looking disgusted and trying to back away. Unless he needs an ego boost, he isn't gonna try to do anything with Amy. So, do I think Archie comics on Amy will ever happen? No. It's so clearly that Amy has feelings for Sonic, but Sonic is just kind of a dick. He's not really showing the emotions back, and he sometimes even manipulates Amy just to get an ego boost. It's really sad, but it really just shows how manipulative Sonic can be. Hello everybody, Dylan here today, and we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's theory, we are going to be looking at the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline, seeing where the new Sonic Mania game could possibly fit place in. So, let's get right into this today on DHT. Sonic Mania isn't out yet, but we can still take bits and pieces of information that we've gotten from the trailer and the gameplay that we've been shown to piece together where this could be taking place at. To simplify things, I'm not going to be including the mobile games such as the Game Gear titles because it would confuse the timeline, and there are several inconsistencies, and we don't really know what all is canon to the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline regarding the Sega Master System games and Game Gear games, so we're just going to be excluding those. First thing that we see is Tails is a playable character, so that means that this has to be taking place after Sega Sonic the Hedgehog the arcade game, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, because Sonic didn't know Tails in the other two games and met Tails in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That was their first adventure. And now we take a look at Sonic's moveset in Sonic Mania. In Sonic Mania, we can see that Sonic can do the Super Peel Out. The Super Peel Out was introduced in Sonic CD, so that means that this game has to be taking place after Sonic CD. Now, this is where it gets confusing. Some people would say that Sonic CD takes place before Sonic 2, but I have to disagree. I say Sonic CD takes place after Sonic 2. The reason why is, in Sonic 2 we get introduced to Silver Sonic. Silver Sonic is slow, he's not very strong, he's a very inferior Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic is far better than Silver Sonic, so why would Eggman take a step down and make Silver Sonic after Metal Sonic? So that's just why I believe it. So I'm going to place it after Sonic CD, and I'm placing Sonic CD after Sonic 2. I know some people are going to get mad about that, but it just makes sense to me. And for the few people who will say, oh, Sonic CD has to happen before Sonic 2 because he isn't with Tails. Well, Sonic doesn't always go on adventures with Tails. Sometimes he just leaves him behind. That's like saying that Sonic the Hedgehog 4 takes place before Sonic the Hedgehog 2 just because Tails isn't there. Tails doesn't always have to tag along with Sonic. Sometimes Sonic just likes going on an adventure on his own. Now we're going back to the playable characters again. We can see that Knuckles the Echidna is going to be in this game, so we can assume this is going to take place after Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, some people would say that Sonic 3 and Knuckles takes place before Sonic CD because Metal Sonic continues, meanwhile Mecha Sonic only stayed in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Well, I can see Mecha Sonic being another form of Metal Sonic because Metal Sonic was designed just for speed. He could keep up with Sonic the Hedgehog, but he wasn't actually stronger than Sonic. Eggman had to rely shooting Sonic with a laser beam because he knew Metal Sonic couldn't beat him strength-wise. That's just the reality of it. So this time Eggman decided to have his creation go super and try to attack Sonic with muscle, but muscle didn't work out, so he went back to speed. I can understand why Metal Sonic would continue and Mecha Sonic was seen as a failure. Not to mention Mecha Sonic has to charge up with the Master Emerald, something that Eggman doesn't have on standby, so Mecha Sonic was just impractical compared to Metal Sonic. Okay, so far we can play Sonic Mania for sure after Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, after Sonic 1, after Sonic 2, and after Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So we've got quite a bit of a timeline going on there. But let me show you something from Mirage Saloon, an area in Sonic Mania that will put it even further down the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline. In the Mirage Saloon, we see 3 wanted posters. It has Fang the Sniper, Bean the Dynamite, and Bark the Polar Bear on them. Now, Fang has appeared in other Sonic games, so we can just not care about him. But Bean the Dynamite and Bark the Polar Bear were only in Sonic the Fighters, the video game. So we can say that Sonic the Fighters now has to be canon. I don't know about the extra emerald. I don't even know. It could be fake. Tails has made fake emeralds before, so we're just going to have to forget about the extra emerald, and we can now play Sonic Mania after Sonic the Fighters. And now there's one last small bit of evidence that will help us pinpoint where this game takes place exactly. Let's look at Sonic the Hedgehog himself. Sonic has black eyes in Sonic Mania, so that means that this has to take place in the classic era. Now, the next game that we haven't covered in the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline is Sonic 4. Now, this has to be taking place before Sonic 4 because in Sonic 4, Sonic has longer quills and green eyes. Because he has green eyes, we can confirm that Sonic Mania has to be before Sonic 4, wrapping up our timeline completely. And now, since we've had our research shown off and examined everything from playable characters, movesets, and Sonic the Hedgehog's eye color, we can finally set up our timeline. It goes Sega Sonic the Hedgehog the arcade game, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic the Fighters, then Sonic Mania, and then Sonic 4 Part 1 and then Part 2. This is just a speculative timeline. I know that Sonic CD doesn't fit in my timeline where it will fit in your timeline. But hopefully I've given enough research and enough evidence to justify why I placed it where I placed it. Hello everybody, Dylan here, and today we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory, we are going to be looking at who could possibly be the new character in Sonic Forces. So let's get right into this today on DHT. Now, what caused all this speculation is Sega showed off a silhouette of what the new character was going to look like from Sonic Forces. This new character has spikes on his cheeks, it appears, and he has pointy ears. So this led everyone in the Sonic fan base into theorizing who this could possibly be. I'm going to list off some of the ideas of what people think the character is. Now, I'm not really going 100% confirming any of these. I want you to decide which one of these characters you think is going to be in it. And if you think of something that I didn't come up with, then just put it in the chat below. So let's get into this with our first one. Now, you guys remember the tagline of the game, right? Join the resistance. You know who was a freedom fighter along with Sonic in the comics? Antoine. He also fits the design of this build. Some people would say, no Dylan, you're wrong. He's short, he's fat, he can't be this tall. Well, if you pay attention to the reboot, he's actually taller. He looks just like this silhouette in the reboot. The ears curve in the exact same way. Now, some people would be like, Antoine's just a coward, he's always running away from danger. Well, that was before the reboot, Antoine. Since the reboot, Antoine's actually been pretty brave and he fights alongside with Sonic. So from the look, the join the resistance, and everything else, you could say that this could be him. The only problem I have with this theory is Sega doesn't work well with characters not created by Sonic Team. This has never worked out before, which is why Sally and friends were only included in spin-off games. Because this is a main game, I wouldn't assume a character like Antoine would be in. And now we're going on to Fang the Sniper. The reason why people think Fang the Sniper could be it is because of his cheeks and his ears. But I really don't see this one working out. What people say is Fang the Sniper may have lost his hat, which is why he would be able to fit in with the design better. But even if Fang the Sniper lost his hat, his ears are far too long and pointy. They don't fit the curved design of that character, and he only has 2 spikes on his cheek, not 3. Not to mention his trademark tail curves up in such a way unlike the other character. So, design-wise, I don't think Fang would fit in at all. Character-wise, I also don't think Fang would fit in at all, because Fang has always been an anti-hero, most of the time being a villain. Why would he suddenly help Sonic out of nowhere? I just don't see this one happening. I can't think of any arguments for Fang the Sniper being the character, especially because Sega said this would be a new character, and Fang is not new. Now, what if when Sega said new character, they actually meant a new twist on a classic character? That could be said with Big the Cat. In this theory, people think that Big the Cat has slimmed down the fight with the freedom fighters. But here's the thing with that. Big the Cat's whole power set involves him being fat. He doesn't have any super strength, he's just so big he can repel people. If he was skinny, he would lose the one ability that he had. Not to mention, Big seems like he's kinda slow. So even if Big did lose the weight, would he be really that helpful? He's kind of dumb. I don't know what Big could do. Big slim down doesn't seem like he'd be much help. Now, some people will be like, what if this is just another generic cat character? Well, that's way too dubious, and we can't even tell what would be the logic behind this. But yeah, I guess it could be a cat. I just don't think it'd be Big the Cat. And now, here's a theory that caught everybody by storm. Could this new character be Bubsy the Bobcat? For those of you who don't know, Bubsy the Bobcat is a 90s mascot character just like Sonic. His games also focus on speed, and he died with the 90s, thank God. So, why do people think it's Bubsy? Well, mainly because of the look and Bubsy's background. If you look at the silhouette compared to Bubsy, they're almost identical. The patches of fur on Bubsy's cheek looks like it could match up with the silhouetted character. Bubsy's ears curve perfectly in the same way as the figure in the promo. But here's one thing people forget about. Bubsy has a cowlick. Now, it could be facing to where we don't see the cowlick, but Bubsy's cowlick is always something that's there with Bubsy, and I don't see it in the silhouette. Not to mention the silhouette doesn't show fingernails. Bubsy has claws. So why would this silhouette not have claws as well? Not to mention, Bubsy's trademark is his shirt. And in this silhouette, we don't see a shirt, we see a shirtless figure with gloves on. Bubsy has never worn gloves either. Now, people think that Bubsy could be the character because his games involve speed, he could fit right in with Sonic. Bubsy's games had fall damage. Fall damage in a platformer is so terrible. Why would you want a third playstyle where you die from falling from anything? I just don't really see Bubsy being the one. What if the third character isn't just one character in particular? What if the third character and third playstyle is actually a create your own character? That would mean that it could be literally anything that you could think up. If you want a speed character, make a speed character. If you want a character focused more on punching, make a strength character. It would be very similar to Dragon Ball Xenoverse. You can bring your OC to life. One of the biggest things in the Sonic fanbase is the creating characters aspect. People love making Sonic OCs, and now you can finally see your Sonic OC fight alongside Sonic. This would be such a good idea, but there's some good reasons to doubt this. One of the reasons to doubt this is, if Sega was working on something of this proportion, of course they would announce it. This is what made Dragon Ball Xenoverse sell. Why would Sega keep this such a secret? People would be so hyped if this turned out to be the feature. People would get it right then and there as soon as possible. The pre-orders would be through the roof. Why would Sega want to keep this in their back pocket? But another reason why it could be a create your own character is they showed a silhouette. Usually when Sega has a new character, they show them outright. What if the reason why Sega didn't show this new character is because it isn't just one character? They just gave you a blank slate of what the character could look like, and you can fill in what you want to. I really hope that this is what it turns out to be, but either way, I'm pretty sure I'll be satisfied with whatever character Sega picks. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Today on DHT, we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory, we are going to be looking at Knuckles Chaotix, a game known for having a lot of playable characters. Well, what if I told you that there was actually going to be more playable characters that were removed? That's the topic of today's theory on DHT. Now, for those of you who do not know what Knuckles Chaotix is, it's a majorly underrated Sonic game released on the Sega 32X. This Sonic game is unique because Sonic isn't actually in it. Yeah, it's a spin-off game. In this game, you play as Knuckles and the Chaotix, and they are connected together using these rings. These rings use like a rubber band effect to launch the characters around. It's a very unique concept, and it's a very unique game. And for some reason, Sega hasn't re-released it. Well, originally this wasn't going to be a Knuckles or Chaotix game. Originally this was called Sonic Crackers, and Sonic Crackers was a prototype shown off to Sega which showed Sonic and Tails with the rings doing very similar things that would be seen in Knuckles Chaotix. So we can see that from the beginning, Sonic and Tails were meant to be the main characters of this game. It was just going to be your typical Sonic game. Now I know what you're thinking, Dylan, what if Sonic and Tails were just placeholders and they were never intended to be in the game to begin with, and it was just used to show Sega the concept of the game? Well, I have some more evidence to show you that this was going to be a Sonic and Tails game. First, we're going to look at the character Mighty the Armadillo. The only other appearance Mighty had was in Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, a Japanese arcade game. So he's a really obscure character. He's only appeared in a few select games. He's really unknown. Why would they put him in here? Why would they put him in with the Chaotix? Well, the answer is they needed to recycle Sonic's sprite. If you look at Mighty's sprites, including his idle animations, they are the same idle animations Sonic was going to have in the game. They literally took Sonic and recycled him into Mighty the Armadillo. That's the only reason why Mighty's here, is because he looks like Sonic. Why not just cut Sonic out altogether? Why recycle him into Mighty the Armadillo, you may be saying? Well, it's simple. Maybe this change happened all the way at the end of the game's development, and they literally couldn't afford to cut out Sonic altogether. They couldn't afford to have less characters. They had to use the character slot. And you may be curious and say, well, what happened to Tails? Tails didn't get recycled. Maybe he was recycled into Charmy Bee. No, he wasn't recycled in Charmy Bee. He was just completely disregarded. If you go to the character select by accessing the debug menu, you can actually find what happened to Tails. And there's an interesting story to what they did with Tails' model. For some reason, they couldn't remove characters at all from this game. That's why they couldn't remove Sonic and they had to recycle him in the Mighty. Tails is the proof that this is what happened. When you try to access Tails by going to the debug and accessing the character menu, you will see XXXXX as a character option. Now, when you access this character, it shows a strange recolored Knuckles. This is what happened when they tried to get rid of Tails. They got rid of the sprite, but the character still existed, and it became a literal clone of Knuckles. Now, you may be saying, I did this, and he doesn't control like Tails, so this isn't Tails. Well, the thing is, they actually removed his momentum. It is there, though. There's an earlier release of the game, an earlier version of the game out online right now, where Knuckles can still fly around identically to Tails. He even gets tired and falls down to the ground, unlike Charmy Bee, who can just fly around any which way he wants to. So for some reason, Knuckles Chaotix literally made it to where you couldn't remove characters. So because they decided to scrap Sonic and Tails, they were stuck with them. They had to recycle Sonic into Mighty the Armadillo, and they had to recycle Tails into this weird Knuckles and push him deep into the game's coding. And yes, that means that this weird gray Knuckles is not an actual character. I know it's a little bit of a bummer, but this was not a character. The fans gave him a name, but that does not mean that he's official. He had no impact on the story. He was only hidden to cover up that Tails was even in the game. More proof that Sonic and Tails was in the game, if you get the good ending, Sonic and Tails appear in the tornado. So that's just yet again more remnants showing that this was going to be a Sonic game. Maybe that was going to be part of the original title screen before they changed Sonic the Mighty and just decided to remove him altogether. Now, the unanswered question, this is where the theory comes in at, is why would you remove Sonic and Tails from this game? Why would you remove Sonic the Hedgehog from a Sonic game? If this was called Sonic's Chaotix, then this would have got more people into buying the game. This could have helped raise the game's popularity. Why would you change it to Knuckles? Well, first of all, we have to look at when this game came out. This game came out when Sonic 3 and Knuckles was out. Knuckles was becoming a really popular character. More popular than Tails even at the time. He was just blowing up. He was so big at the time. So I can understand them putting it onto Knuckles to hold up the game's title in North America. But why remove Sonic and Tails? I have a theory. The theory is Sega didn't know that the 32X was going to do well. They didn't want to risk ruining Sonic's reputation because at the time, Sonic didn't have bad games attached to him. I know it's ironic, but Sega couldn't afford Sonic having a bad or mediocre game. This is the guy to compete with Mario. Mario doesn't have mediocre games. Sonic has to be saved for the best titles. That's just the quality control Sega had back then. So they had to get rid of these characters because they couldn't risk ruining Sonic's image. So yeah, that's what I think happened. Sega was unsure how this game would do, and they just didn't want to take any risk. They were on top at the time, and that just seemed too dangerous for them to do. Now, can this story have a happy ending? Yes. If Sega chooses to do like they did with Sonic 1 and 2 and CD and do a remaster, then we could get Sonic and Tails back. Putting Mighty the Armadillo back to being Sonic isn't hard, and we could still have Mighty and just add Sonic as well. Hell, the sprites for Sonic was already made for the game, so just reuse those. I know Sega still has them, and I'm sure that they were going to use some sprite of Tails, so that's already there as well. And what about this gray echidna? I say leave him out. You might be able to put him as an Easter egg, but he really doesn't do anything, and it would kind of ruin Knuckles' uniqueness of being the last echidna. That's something we gotta remember. There is no more echidnas in the video games, only Knuckles. So this gray and red guy, no matter how cool he looks, just can't happen. It's just something we have to give up on.
Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now, as you guys saw in the Sonic Forces trailers, a lot of old villains will be returning, one of them including Shadow. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, isn't Shadow a good guy? Well, I'm gonna see if I can explain why Shadow is here today on DHT. Now, before we can take a look at Shadow's possible motivations in Forces, I have to do a brief history lesson of Shadow the Hedgehog so you know what I'm talking about. Shadow the Hedgehog debuted in Sonic Adventure 2. He was created by Gerald Robotnik, and as we found out in his solo game, Shadow Shadow the Hedgehog, he was created using Black Doom's DNA. Black Doom is an evil alien in space that wanted to take over the world. Now, you would assume that just because he has Black Doom's DNA, he would be evil. Well, it turns out Shadow isn't evil. Shadow befriended Gerald's granddaughter named Maria, and it was through befriending her that he realized that humanity is something that's worth saving, and it's something that is worth defending. Now, in Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow is playing the role of the bad guy. This is because he doesn't fully remember his past, and he doesn't fully remember what Maria wanted him to do, and he's just going off of the vague instructions that an insane Gerald Robotnik left him to do. Gerald Robotnik wasn't totally secure after his granddaughter died, so really listening to him isn't so smart. Shadow was more misguided than he actually was evil in Sonic Adventure 2. The thing that shows it is, at the end, Shadow chooses to help Sonic save the planet rather than just letting the planet get blown up. Shadow didn't have to help Sonic. He could have just let everything get blown up and then his job would be done. But he realized that Maria wants him to save people, and he chose to save the Earth. Now, we thought he died in Sonic Adventure 2, but instead he ended up burning up into the Earth's atmosphere right before he completely died. Eggman's robot saved him, and then they brought him to Eggman's ship, and this will transition over to Sonic Heroes. In Sonic Heroes, we see that Shadow is being held on Eggman's ship when Rouge and Omega finds him. Now, it's hinted for a little bit there that he could be an android, but we don't really know. Shadow's just trying to find Eggman so Eggman can tell him who he is. I don't know if Shadow has any negative intentions for Eggman, but from what it seems like, he wasn't really trying to hurt anybody. He just wanted to figure out who he was so he can move on with his life. He was even willing to work with Rouge and Omega, so it shows that he's at least somewhat kind and caring. Now, from this, we move on to his next appearance, Shadow the Hedgehog. In Shadow the Hedgehog, his biological father Black Doom shows up to take over the world. He tells Shadow that he was designed to help him take over the world and that he should bring him the Chaos Emeralds. There's plenty of endings for Shadow the Hedgehog, but the proper ending is Shadow gets over the fact that Maria was killed by gun soldiers, and he ends up helping the gun soldiers defeat Black Doom, his father, and he saves the entire planet from the Black Comet and the Black Arms. This shows that Shadow's finally willing to let go of who he was. He even drops the photo of Maria and says Shadow the Hedgehog is no more. So it really shows that he's over his past, he's over everything bad that happened to him, he's ready to help people and he's ready to help the world. This will really show in his next appearance, unfortunately, Sonic 06. In Sonic 06, Shadow is doing just like he did in Shadow the Hedgehog, working with Omega and Rouge, but this time he's working as an official agent of Gun, showing that there's no hard feelings for what happened with Maria. He realizes that happened over 50 years ago. He's finally moved on and he has a job helping the government and helping the world. This really shows maturity out of Shadow, and it shows that he's completely done with being a villain. He's not 100% a good guy because he's still going to use guns, he's still going to run people over with his car, but at least he's fighting for what we can see as good people and right causes. In Sonic 06, there is a villain named Mephiles. Mephiles looks like Shadow. He says that Shadow's going to be betrayed by the government in the future. They're going to capture him, and he even shows his captured body as proof. Shadow didn't care about this, and he said if the world chooses to fight him, then he'll fight the world. This shows that he has no negative intent, and he doesn't want petty revenge anymore. If it happens, it happens. That's just how Shadow sees things now. He's no longer the person that's out for revenge. He's no longer the person that's out for petty squabbles. He doesn't insult Sonic anymore. He's just there to help people. And that's why in Sonic 06, he never questions his loyalty, and he knows he has to stop Mephiles at any cost. Now, unfortunately, this is the last game we'll be able to see Shadow's kind emotions and Shadow's character progression, because after this, Sega decided to step back from the characters and only focus on Sonic. So before we hop into analyzing Shadow the Hedgehog to see why he could be working with Infinite, I'm going to give you a
a brief synopsis of his powers. This is just going to be a brief summary of his powers. I'm not going to mention everything, so if I forget something, don't get mad at me. Most of Shadow's powers derives from the fact that he uses chaos energy manipulation. You can tell this with his chaos blast, his chaos spears, and most notably chaos control. He can literally slow down time or speed up time to benefit himself. We've seen him do this in Shadow the Hedgehog when he needs to get to one area really fast. We've seen this in Sonic 06 when he slows down time to kick Silver, and we've seen this in Sonic 06 again where him and Sonic can even time travel using chaos control. As you can tell, Shadow is really OP. Not to mention he can step it up and be even more OP by popping off his inhibitor rings. His inhibitor rings holds back his chaos energy. Now, supposedly he might run out of energy if he keeps them off for too long, but this has never been proven in the games. It's only been talked about in Sonic X. So we've only seen him pop the bands off once, and that's in Sonic 06, and he was able to destroy a whole cluster of Mephiles. So as we can see, he's extremely powerful and he can definitely handle himself. This will be important for later, I guarantee you. So now, since we've looked at Shadow the Hedgehog's character progression, his morality, and his powers, we can finally determine why Shadow might be here. Now, for what most people would be thinking is the obvious one, he just turned evil or he just wants to see Sonic's end. We've already talked about this. Throughout all of the previous narrative games, Shadow has moved past everything. He doesn't want to kill Sonic anymore. He doesn't want to be a bad guy. He doesn't even hold issues with the military. He works for the military that killed the most important person in his life. He would not be doing this for evil reasons. So we can mark off because he's evil or he wants revenge right away. He's not going to be like the other villains there. Now, the second option is one that people have talked about due to the Infinite trailer. There's one frame where Shadow has a weird squinty eye. Now, this makes a lot of people wonder, is this even the real Shadow? As far as I know from Sega's confirmations, this is supposed to be the real Shadow. So we can eliminate Shadow Android, we can eliminate Clone or anything like that. If he has this weird squinty eye, it would have to mean that he's being mind controlled. And judging by the fact that we don't know who Infinite is or what powers he has, mind control could definitely be one of them, or mind manipulation. And his eyes turning into that squinty look, that definitely could be a sign of him being manipulated. I wouldn't doubt if Shadow is doing this not of his own accord, but because he thinks that he's doing the right thing because he's being mind controlled. But that's not the one that I think is the most likely answer. Let's get into the one that I think is most likely to happen right now. One thing I mentioned earlier is that after the events of Shadow the Hedgehog, Shadow was working for the military agency known as GUN. Now, this is important because the first time we meet Rouge is in Sonic Adventure 2, and in this game, Rouge is working undercover as a GUN agent to spy on Eggman. This means that Shadow definitely could be undercover as a military assignment, and from what we know from Sega, Shadow is here by his own reasons. So I'm pretty sure that we can assume that he's undercover trying to see what this Infinite is so the military can find a way to stop it. That's most likely to be what's happening here. He knows how gullible Eggman is, and he's hoping to pry on that gullibility. Eggman probably knows that Shadow is an agent, but he's keeping him around because it's just useful to have him there. Well, to those of you who were in the comments section of my last theory video saying when's the Sonic Mania theory coming out, that question is answered today, because we are going to be talking about the Super Emeralds, Tails and Knuckles Super Form, and Hyper Sonic, and we will decide today if they are canon or non-canon today on DHT. Now, for those of you who are waiting for the PC version of Sonic Mania to come out, you might want to click off this video now because it is going to have spoilers. I talk about something that happens in Knuckles' route exclusively, so if you don't want to be spoiled, click off right now, you've been warned. Now, in the cutscene I'm talking about, the leader of the Hard-Boiled Heavies has broken into the Master Emerald Shrine, and he's going to try to take the Master Emerald. Now, as you can see, this shrine is identical to the way it was in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, meaning that the Super Emerald placements are around the Master Emerald. And this has led many people like my friend Gamer Guy 7 Aces to think that the Super Emeralds are now canon. But let me counter that and tell you why I still think that they're non-canon. Now, while yes, in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, this is definitely where a Super Emerald would go, but as we can see in this game, in this continuity, Knuckles hops up where an Emerald should go, and he stands on top of it to look at the hard-boiled heavy. If a Super Emerald was supposed to fit inside of there, how is Knuckles standing on top of it? I think that these emeralds are made of stone, and they're all just to imitate the Chaos Emeralds. It's all just in dedication to the Master Emerald. This is supposed to be a place of worship, so I think that these emeralds are fake. If it wasn't fake, how could Knuckles just stand on top of it? Now you may say it could be made of glass. I don't think it's made of glass either, because it has wear and tear on it and it has cracks through it. I'm pretty sure these are stone emeralds just there to make the Master Emerald look more grand. And if there was Super Emeralds, I don't know why they wouldn't have you use the Super Emeralds. Let me get into this right now. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the only way for Knuckles and Tails to transform is with the Super Emeralds. Tails turns into Super Tails and Knuckles into his super form. In this game, you use the Chaos Emeralds to turn into your super forms. Now, some people would be like, well, how do we know that these aren't just different super forms altogether? Knuckles is the exact same shade of pink, and he flashes in the exact same way as in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And Tails, he is the one that makes this different. Tails in Sonic 3 and Knuckles had an army of flickies that would surround him and attack people. In this game, he doesn't have that. He just has sparkles. Now, Christian Whitehead pays very close attention to Sonic lore. If he gets all this stuff right, if he gets all these references right, if he shoves in Easter eggs left and right, you'd think that he'd be able to get this to look correct, because he's gotten everything else right. He got the physics right, he got the levels right, he got the lore correct. Why would he choose to not put in flickies? He has flicky models because we can see that some of the animals you save are flickies. This was intentional. It was to show you that this isn't the same super form from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. These are weaker super forms given to you by the Chaos Emeralds. These are canon super forms for Tails and Knuckles. You can say that they're the same super forms from the Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but if that was true, why wouldn't they turn the Chaos Emeralds into Super Emeralds in this game? It would be basically the same thing, and then Sonic would be able to turn Hyper. That's another big reason why I don't think that this is canon, because Sonic didn't even attempt to go Hyper. With all the enemies he's facing and having the Chaos Emeralds, wouldn't he go to the shrine to turn into Hypersonic to have an assured victory? I just think that this is a little Easter egg that some people are taking too seriously. I still say it's like this. It goes Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles. Whatever happens in Sonic 3 and Knuckles isn't canon. So that means the Hyper form and the Super Emeralds are still non-canon. If they were canon, then why wouldn't they be in this game? We have the shrine, we have the placements for the emeralds to go, we have the emeralds. There is no reason to not make Sonic go Hyper unless it's non-canon. So yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think that this is a retcon. I don't think that Hyper is canon again, and I don't think the Super Emeralds are canon. I think that this is just an alternative way of bringing back Tails and Knuckles super forms and making it into the current canon to where they get these from the Chaos Emeralds. I'm glad that the shrine references that the Super Emeralds did exist out of continuity, and I'm just glad that we got so many Easter eggs in this game and so many references to past Sonic games. Hello everybody, Happy New Year's to everyone who is watching this. It is now 2018, and I thought that I would start this year off with a bang by doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory, we are going to be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline and how it is completely split in half from what we used to know it as, and how it's now actually separated. So we're going to be talking about that, what caused this shift, and what the timeline now looks like today on DHT. One thing I want to say at the beginning of this before we get started is games that are questionable to the canon of Sonic will not be included. That means like the Game Gear games will not be included, Knuckles Chaotix, the arcade games like Sonic the Fighters, these are not going to be included because we can't confirm if they're canon even though the characters within them are canon and are referenced in canon material. So sorry for the fans of these games, they're just too iffy for me to talk about them. So the first thing we're going to be doing is talking about the timeline as it was before the modifications, before everything changed, and how the events normally played out. I'm going to talk up to the point to where the shift happened, and then I'm going to explain why these shifts happened, and what caused the shifts, and what effects the shifts had to the overall timeline. So, yeah. The first game in the classic era timeline is Sonic 1. In Sonic 1, Sonic stops Eggman from taking over the world. He gathers the 6 Chaos Emeralds, and then the 6 Chaos Emeralds split off and go their separate ways. Then, in Sonic 2, Sonic does the same thing, but with his now partner Tails. They go up to the Death Egg, and they confront Eggman. Sonic fights Silver Sonic, the robot copy of him. Sonic has the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and is able to turn Super Sonic, and if you gather all the Chaos Emeralds, you get the good ending of this game. We then move on to Sonic CD. Sonic CD does come before Sonic 3. I have multiple reasons why, but I think the main reason is Metal Sonic is better than Silver Sonic. Silver Sonic is the robot Sonic you fight in Sonic 2. Metal Sonic is comparable in speed to Sonic, so I think it's best to say that Metal Sonic came at least after Silver Sonic. Now, the reason why I think that Metal Sonic didn't come after Mecha Sonic is Metal Sonic was made to be faster than Sonic. I believe that Mecha Sonic was made to turn super. He was made to be physically stronger. So I could see Mecha Sonic being a modification of Metal Sonic rather than Metal Sonic coming after Mecha. So I'm putting Sonic CD yet again before 3 but after 2. In Sonic CD, you are gathering the Time Stones to stop Eggman from capturing Little Planet and taking over the world. After you do this, you save the world, but there's a bad ending in Stardust Speedway. No matter what, the bad future is canon. We'll see this later on in Sonic 4, and we'll see this later on in Sonic Generations. In this timeline, the bad Stardust Speedway is the canon for this. So that's just how that worked. Now, we move on to Sonic 3. In Sonic 3, you gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and you stop Eggman. Yet again, he's doing about the same thing, except for this time he's trying to steal the Master Emerald. I'm counting Sonic 3 and Knuckles as one narrative because it's basically one game that was split into two. Sonic teams up with Knuckles and beats Eggman. So, the end on that one. Now, we move on to the next part of the timeline. And before we move on to the Dreamcast era, I have to talk about the 2 odd games out, or technically 1 odd game out, which is Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2. Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2 takes place right after Sonic 3, but right before the Dreamcast games, and you can see the transition. It's still 2D, but it has modern Sonic's design. I didn't really like the games. The story isn't very important. It's just rehashes of older stories. The only thing you need to know is Eggman goes and gets Metal Sonic from the Little Planet and repairs him. So that's how Metal Sonic is alive. Also, Metal Sonic gets his copy ability in the Metal Sonic DLC. So that's all you need to know, is that Metal Sonic gets his copy ability, which will be featured in Sonic Heroes from the Sonic 4 games. The next part of the timeline is what the fans have dubbed the Dreamcast era. Originally, this was just the modern era, but for some reason people decided to split it just to make categorizing it simpler, but we'll just read through it anyway because it's only got a few games in it. First, we're going to start with Sonic Adventure. Sonic Adventure was Sonic's first leap into 3D, his full leap into 3D. In this game, Eggman is awakening an ancient being called Chaos, and he's giving him Chaos Emeralds to turn him into his ultimate form, and hoping that he will help him destroy the world. Sonic stops him. It's a very simple story. Then we move on to Sonic Advance, and for the Advance games, I'm not even going to give a plot summary because there isn't really a plot. Then we get Sonic Adventure 2. In Sonic Adventure 2, Eggman awakens Shadow, and Shadow goes to the Space Colony Arc to turn it on to blow up the planet to avenge Maria's death, but eventually Shadow has a change of heart and realizes he wants to protect humanity and sacrifice his life to save the world, and he dies. That's the main important part of that. Then we move on to Sonic Advance 2, which really isn't important. Then Then we get Sonic Heroes, where it turns out Shadow is alive still. We'll figure out how he lived later on in this timeline. And this is just a simple story of Metal Sonic trying to take over the world. He kidnapped Eggman. Sonic stops him. All you need to know is where it takes place. Then we get Sonic Battle, which is a game I'm not so familiar with. I haven't beat the storyline of it yet, but basically there's this little robot that Eggman is trying to take control of called a Gizoid, and it's really weird, but it is canon apparently as far as I know. Some people consider it not to be canon, but I'm pretty sure it's canon. Then immediately after that we get Sonic Advance 3, then we get Shadow the Hedgehog, and this is the end of the Dreamcast era. And in Shadow the Hedgehog, it turns out that Eggman saved Shadow, which is why he was able to come back, and he is the real Shadow. He ends up stopping Black Doom, which was an alien that was trying to take over the world, and at the end of this game, he decided that Shadow isn't important anymore, and he wants to be his own person and move on from his past and move on from Maria. So that's the end of the Dreamcast era. Now, up until this point, all the games had been pretty safe. The one time they did deal with time travel is very minor, and it was time travel that didn't actually affect the timeline because Sonic was able to get the time stones before Eggman could, and everything turned out fine. This game would be where everything changes, and it would be where the timeline starts to break apart. This game is Sonic 06. Disregarding how terrible of a game it is in general, it completely fucks the timeline. To sum this up, Silver is a hedgehog from a destroyed future, which is being destroyed by Iblis. Iblis is a fire demon god thing, and the thing is, Mephiles, who is part of Solaris, wants to be part of Solaris again and mix together with Iblis to become a god. So he gets Silver to go back into the past, kill Sonic, so then Iblis can be free and he can bond with him and then turn into Solaris again. So this ends up happening, and then at the end of the game, just to sum it up so we don't have to go through a big plot synopsis of what happens, Sonic ends up getting Iblis back to his true form, which is just a little flame, and if he blows out the flame, it undoes everything that happened in Sonic 06, and then the timeline would be reversed, and it would be like none of this stuff ever happened. Mephiles would have never existed, and the timeline would be changed permanently. Sonic ends up blowing out the flame, and it creates a good future for Silver, but this isn't the last time we will see Silver. Silver will be in the next game following this, but because Sonic blew out that flame, Sonic 06 didn't happen. So that's one thing you need to know. Sonic 06 erases itself from the timeline, but this shows that you can cause permanent damage to the Sonic the Hedgehog timeline. This is the first time it would happen, but it wouldn't be the last. Now it's time to talk about the modern era, and the modern era starts with games involving time travel and dimensional traveling, so yay! This really shows where the weird shit starts to happen. This is where everything confuses everybody. Now, first we're gonna start with Sonic Rivals. Sonic Rivals is a game where Silver the Hedgehog comes back from the future to talk to Sonic and friends. Now, Silver the Hedgehog, this is the Silver from the part of time where everything was fixed, so this Silver had a better future, but in Sonic Rivals, this is this Silver's first time meeting Sonic. Silver comes back to investigate Eggman Nega, who is Eggman's descendant from the future, and he tries to steal the Master Emerald, and Silver and Sonic have to team up to stop him. That's what this game's about. Then the second game is more of the same. Eggman Nega was trying to awaken some beast that could destroy everything. Just generic shit. Just more Silver bonding with the cast. So this Silver knows them. He's now interacted with them for 2 games. Then we get Sonic Rush, which really is debatable where it belongs, but we're gonna put Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure here, even though it very well could take place before or after. And it just really could go anywhere. There's no indication where this is. Because the reason why I put it here is Sonic didn't recognize Blaze in 06, so I'm putting this after 06. And Sonic is one of the few people that can remember 06, so he knows it happened. Now, in Sonic Rush, we learn that Blaze the Cat isn't from the future, but is instead from another dimension. This dimension is the soul dimension. And no, this isn't a timeline split. There are multiple dimensions in Sonic's multiverse, and this is just one of them. In the soul dimension, she is basically the equivalent to Sonic. Her job is to guard her emeralds and be sure that dimension is safe. So that's contained on its own. We don't have to worry about that. Then it's the sequel to Sonic Rush, and then we get into the next main series game, which is Sonic Unleashed. Sonic Unleashed is where Eggman tries to unleash Dark Gaia, which is basically the devil of the Sonic universe, and then Sonic has to team up with Light Gaia, who's basically the god of his universe, to reunite the world and save it from Dark Gaia and Eggman. Now we move on to Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors is just a little romp through space. It's not really too important. Eggman's trying to take over planets with these little creatures called Wisp, using them and their energy to fuel his machine. And now, next we get to talk about the game that causes the most problems in the Sonic timeline. And this is the reason why this video is being made. Sonic Generations. And we're only talking about the 360, PC, and PlayStation 3 versions. I don't care about the DS version. As far as I'm concerned, the 3DS version isn't canon. I know there's some stuff that happens in it that you would like to be canon, but both of these games can't happen at the same time. So until Sega says otherwise, I'm considering it non-canon along with Sonic Colors DS. But what happens in this game is we get introduced to a being known as the Time Eater. Now, Time Eater is able to bring back points in time and exclude them and hold them out into white space. White space is basically where there is no time or space. So he was able to take these chunks of time and just strand them in the middle of nowhere. And Sonic has to restore the time spots in order to bring back his friends. Now, by doing this, we get to see that the 06 timeline gets brought back for a second, but I don't believe that this is truly the 06 timeline. I believe that this is instead a remnant, something that was left over from the 06 timeline and isn't the original 06 timeline itself. And the Silver we see in the 06 timeline, I believe he is the main game Silver. I believe that he is the same Silver from Rivals. It's just at the time he was having memory problems because he was kind of having a memory lapse of the original Silver, but that can be just the result of Time Eater. So at the end of Generations, when we see Silver talking with Sonic and Blaze at the party, I'm sure that he remembered which Silver he is. He remembered his true origin, not this Sonic 06 stuff that Time Eater put into its head. Now, what Time Eater ended up doing is he ended up taking out a classic Sonic and an Eggman from the past and a Tails. When he did this, this is the same Eggman, Tails, and Sonic from the Genesis games. Now, in this game, they exclusively say that these are themselves from the past. Eggman remembers that that's how he looked like. Sonic remembers that's how he looked like. They say past selves a lot. So that's something you need to know when we start talking about Forces, which is the next game. I'm skipping over Lost World. We know it takes place, but it's not important. But the reason why I have to say this is, when it comes to the next game, they will try to contradict themselves, and I won't let them. In this game, they say past selves. Eggman teams up with past Eggman Dr. Robotnik to try to take over reality with the Time Eater. Now, at the end of this game, Sonic goes back to his timeline. We think everything is restored, but it's not. In Sonic Forces, we find out that this classic Sonic is being called Sonic from another dimension. Now, I think Sonic is just mistaken and that they don't actually know that different dimension is actually a different timeline. What happened is, when Time Eater brought out this timeline, when Time Eater brought out this Sonic and this Eggman, it changed everything. Now there's a second timeline. There was the original timeline where Sonic never met his future self, and that's the timeline that modern Sonic is from. And then there's the timeline where classic Sonic did meet his future self, and this is the new classic timeline. This classic Sonic went on an adventure that the modern classic Sonic never did. Modern classic Sonic never had the Mania adventure. He never dealt with the Phantom Ruby. We know this because in Forces, Sonic didn't know what the Phantom Ruby was. He was shocked, even though the Phantom Ruby was discovered and he had to deal with it in Mania, proving that Mania takes place in this other dimension or timeline. So we can now establish that there's a timeline set up to where there's the original events of the Genesis games, everything went down the way they did, but right after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, something different happens. Classic Sonic instead interacts with his future self in in Generations. So Generations is now added to the classic Sonic timeline, and then after Generations we get Mania, and then after Mania we get Forces. So this is the new classic Sonic timeline that this new classic Sonic from this second timeline has as his history. So now this is forever a part of his history. Meanwhile, modern Sonic never had to deal with this as classic Sonic. He is from a timeline where this stuff didn't happen. And another interesting thing is, and you guys might want to just call this timeline's name, in this timeline, classic Sonic went back and made a good future for Stardust Speedway. So that's another way that you can differentiate the two dimensions or timelines. Classic Sonic in the original timeline has a bad future for Stardust Speedway. That's canon. In Sonic Generations, we see the bad future. In Sonic 4, we see the bad future. But in Mania, he finally corrects that and fixes it. Now, the reason why I had to spend like 10 minutes to tell you about all this is Sega is trying to say that this is just a separate dimension that looks similar to the classic Sonic games, when that's clearly not the case. This is a separate timeline. Timelines are created differently. I'll use Dragon Ball Z as an example. When Future Trunks traveled back in time, instead of fixing his timeline when he repaired what happened, instead what happened is his future stayed the same and the androids are still running around. Meanwhile, he altered the reality of another timeline. He created another set of events that would lead on to have another Trunks. That's what happens with Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic takes a lot of stuff from Dragon Ball Z, so it would only make sense that they would also take time travel from Dragon Ball Z as well. And not to mention, this Silver already knows everybody, so he is definitely the same Silver that we've known since Sonic Rivals. And if Silver really could do anything to fix this timeline situation, he'd probably try it. But Time Eater just completely fucked everything up. So when Sega tells you that there is multiple dimensions, no. Blaze is in another dimension. Classic Sonic is in another timeline. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now today we are going to be doing a Sonic theory. Or should I say we're going to be countering a Sonic theory. Now I'm sure all of you have heard about MatPat. MatPat has not had a good track record with Sonic theories. In fact, they've been some of his worst theories. He did a theory the other month, maybe 5 months ago. I've had this on the back burner for a while now, where he said that the Chaos Emeralds weren't actually emeralds, instead they were quartz. Now normally I wouldn't have a problem with this, but because people are dumb and they take MatPat's word as gospel, I've seen top fact videos where they say that the Chaos Emeralds aren't emeralds just because MatPat said they weren't. So now since this has become a problem and I have to clear it up, I'm just gonna do that today. So nothing personal against you, MatPat, I just don't agree with your theory. So let's get into debunking this today on DHT. Now first thing we are gonna do is focus on MatPat's claim that the Chaos Emeralds aren't shaped like emeralds. There's a problem with that, MatPat. You're talking about how the Chaos Emeralds look in modern day, but throughout all the Sonic games, the Chaos Emeralds have been very inconsistent. In fact, throughout the whole Sonic continuity, the Chaos Emeralds have been very inconsistent. We're gonna take a look at a screenshot from Sonic the Hedgehog 1 with all the Chaos Emeralds, and as you can see, they are emerald cut. Now you could say that this is a top head view and the Chaos Emeralds are still shaped the way they are supposed to be shaped. I would counter with this screenshot. This is Sonic 3D Blast. In Sonic 3D Blast, the emeralds are emerald cut. You can even see in this game over screen Eggman juggling the Chaos Emeralds, and they are clearly flat. They are emerald cut like they are supposed to be. Hell, even in Sonic Spinball, the Chaos Emeralds are emerald cut. They're a little weird emerald cut, but this look also went on to be in Sonic Triple Trouble. So there actually are Sonic games where the Chaos Emeralds were emerald cut. They haven't always been this weird diamond cut that they are now. I don't know why Sega changed their mind, but they did. So the fact that you would even take into consideration their cut is weird to me, but if you don't believe me, let's take a look at the comic. In the Archie comics, when the Chaos Emeralds first appeared, and for a bit until they were retconned, they were emerald cut and they were green like emeralds are supposed to be. In the Fleetway comics, the Chaos Emeralds for the longest time, and I don't even know if they ever did change, were always emerald cut. There's plenty of screenshots I can show you where the Chaos Emeralds are emerald cut. And then in the Sonic promotional comic, weirdly enough, the Chaos Emeralds are actually circular. That is a cut you can do for emeralds, but it's just just weird. I've never seen the Chaos Emeralds cut in that way. And finally, I'm going to bring up the Sonic the Hedgehog animated series, not the SatAM one, the regular Sonic the Hedgehog animated series. It's weird talking about the animated series because that show hardly had consistency to begin with, but they did have Chaos Emeralds. All the emeralds were different cuts, and it was weird, but it's just yet again another sign to show you that the cuts have never been consistent throughout Sonic the Hedgehog. Continuing on the discussion of how gems are cut, let's take a look at the Phantom Ruby. The Phantom Ruby isn't cut like a ruby, so by your own definition, the Phantom Ruby wouldn't be a ruby. Yeah, it's kind of the right color of a ruby, but it's also too light to be a ruby. So is the Phantom Ruby some other gem and not a ruby? Because even in Sonic Mania, that's not the cut of a ruby. That's not what rubies look like at all. Another gem I could bring up is the Ancient Onyx from the Sonic comic. That also has a diamond cut. Now, Onyx can have diamond cuts, but it's to show you that just because it has a certain cut doesn't mean that it can't be this gem. Just because emeralds normally don't have a diamond cut mean that they can't. Just like in our world, diamonds can have an emerald cut. Maybe in Sonic's world, it's popular for emeralds to have the diamond cut. These cuts only exist because we made them. Maybe in Sonic World, it's more common for things to have diamond cuts to them. Now, your next point I want to cover is Chaos Emeralds are the wrong colors. Emeralds can't be blue. Well, do you know what else can't be blue? Hedgehogs. Sonic's world is cartoony. Things are crazy and wildly different than our own world. In Sonic's world, hedgehogs can be pink or blue. Echidnas are red. And finally, emeralds can be other colors than green. Want a good example? Rings. In Sonic World, rings are always gold, but for some reason, with the Chaos Rings, they are also multicolored like the Chaos Emeralds. Also, the World Rings were multicolored as well. It's clearly that they are powered by some type of energy that is changing their color. That's why the Chaos Rings and the World Rings are so special, just like the Chaos Emeralds. It's the energy is changing their color, not that they are actually that color to begin with. I'll talk about this more later when I want to talk about that. But for now, let's talk about the problem I have with MatPat's theory. My problem is that you're only using our world's logic to answer this question, when in reality, Sonic's world follows a different set of logic than our world does. In Sonic's world, Sonic can breathe in space without needing any equipment. Tails can fly using his tails. Knuckles can glide using his dreadlock. None of this makes sense if we take our world logic into account. Sonic's world works different than our world. And I know that sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but that's just the truth of it. These are just small examples of how Sonic's world works differently than ours. This is just something we have to accept. In his world, animals, rings, and yes, even emeralds can be any color of the rainbow. I assume the reason why these are emeralds, despite not being cut like emeralds, is the fact that their chemical composition is that of an emerald. Yes, that's why I think they're emeralds. Just because you cut a diamond like an emerald doesn't mean that that diamond won't be a diamond still. Chemically, it is still a diamond. The same can be said for quartz. Chaos Emeralds may be different colors than an emerald should be, but that doesn't mean that its chemical composition is any different than that of an emerald. So why do I think the emeralds are different colors? Let me answer that right now. The real answer is they're not actually different colors because of their chemical composition. They're different colors because they're filled with chaos energy. The Chaos Emeralds are actually clear and kind of dark gray. You would get to see this through 3 examples that I have. I'll mention 2 canon ones and 1 non-canon one. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, when you turn the Chaos Emeralds into Super Emeralds are drained of their power and you have to repower them. Before you repower them, you can see if they're clear. They're supposed to be transparent. And the 2 canon examples I have is in Sonic Unleashed, when Eggman drains the Chaos Emeralds of their power to crack the earth open, you see if the Chaos Emeralds are really dark gray. They're probably still clear, but you don't really get a good look at them, so there's no way to see 100%. But in Sonic Adventure, you can clearly see the emeralds when Chaos drains them of their energy. They are dark gray and clear. Sonic holds the emerald, he uses Chaos Control to get them their energy back, and then the energy fills inside of the emeralds and they change colors. They are actually clear and dark gray, and when they get filled with Chaos energy, they turn into the colors of the the rainbow. It's not actually their chemical composition. So at the end of the day, my final thoughts would have to be this. In Sonic's world, there are plenty of ancient gems and artifacts. We've seen an onyx, a ruby, and plenty of emeralds. MatPat's theory was fun, but the second people start considering it canon is when it just becomes ridiculous. They are emeralds, and if you really need 100% clarification, in Sonic X there was a scene where the Chaos Emerald was found and put into a jewelry store, and the jewelry store called it an emerald. I'm sure that this person whose whole career is looking at gems and determining what gem they are would know that it's an emerald. Even though it's not the right color of an emerald, it's an emerald. They make this clear in Sonic X multiple times. Yes, it's weird that these emeralds are different colors, but they are emeralds. So yeah, if you really want to get technical, Sonic X heard your complaint, they knew you were going to talk about it, and they already clarified, yes, these are emeralds. So yeah, I'm just tired of everyone saying that MatPat's theory is canon and that they're quartz. If people would quit putting that in their fact list, that would be really nice. Also, it'd be really nice if you quit saying Sonic's shoes give him super speed, but that's another problem for another day. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Today we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. What if I told you Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was actually going to be the game to have a time travel plot instead of Sonic CD? If you're interested in this, we are going to talk about it today on DHT. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson so you understand where this theory is coming from. Back after Sonic 1 was released, both Sonic CD and Sonic 2 went in development at the same time. Originally, Sonic CD was going to be a recreation of Sonic 1, then it was going to be a port of Sonic 2, then they finally decided to make it its own thing. When it became its own thing though, it still took a lot of story aspects from Sonic 2, that mainly being the time travel mechanic. I'm going to be explaining to you how the time travel mechanic would work in Sonic 2, and you can see how very similar it is to the time travel mechanic and plot that got worked into Sonic CD. Now, since the exposition is out of the way, I can go on to the meat of this theory. While researching into this, I found a post on Sonic Retro, and this post laid out the basic idea of what this mechanic would be, and they even gave us maps of the islands, and these maps show us how the islands are affected by time. I've taken these and I'm going to try to connect the dots and talk about the changes the island goes through all the way back to the ancient past, all the way forward to Eggman's dream future that could be. Now, saying this in advance, there is no real explanation for these changes, so I'm going to be improvising and guessing a lot on these. Hopefully you find this theory to be interesting and entertaining either way it goes. First, we're going to be talking about the changes from the ancient past to the present. The island is settled and the changes happen slowly throughout time. This is a picture showing you the ancient island. You can see the monuments around. There's Hilltop, Blue Lake Zone, Olympus, Rock World Zone, the Warp Point, and the Tropical Plant Zone. And then we go into the island in the present. We can see that Hilltop was settled down and it becomes Green Hill Zone, the classic Sonic level. And yes, Green Hill Zone was going to appear in the original Sonic 2. The greenery of Blue Lake Zone is gone, and now all that's left are the trees, so it's renamed to Wood Zone. Olympus crumbles, and now the only thing that it is known for is the ocean winds you feel there, which is probably how the island corroded to begin with, and now it's renamed to Ocean Wind Zone. Some of the greenery near the mountain dried up, turning it into a field destroyed by sandstorms. This would be known as Sand Shower Zone. Tropical Plant Zone is renamed and settled to become the city of Metropolis. We then see that Eggman will invade the island and starts to terraform it into his empire. So we're going to look at the changes from the present to the destroyed present, so we can begin to see the effect of Eggman's invasion has on the environment. And this is actually a really good sign to show you that Sonic is an environmental game, because you actually get to see slowly how Eggman destroys South Island. This is the island before Eggman invades it. This is the island after Eggman invades it, and what would be named the destroyed present. Green Hill Zone is dried up and partially destroyed, and it becomes Dust Hill Zone, the scrapped level that we've seen concept art for before. The woods and the land that held them are destroyed, and now the stretch of water is called Oil Ocean due to how polluted the water is thanks to Eggman dumping chemicals into the water. A new mountain forms in the shallow water and it's called Rock World Zone. I'm going to provide a simple study showing you that the collision of tectonic plates can actually form mountains. So I know it looks weird that a mountain popped up here, but it is possible. Tectonic plates, when they rub together, they can make land masses form, and that's actually how mountains form. If Eggman speeds up to terraforming, he actually can create mountains, hypothetically. The city of Metropolis is destroyed, and Sonic gets sent to the future, where he gets to see how bad things will go if he doesn't stop Eggman in the present. Now, with Sonic out of Eggman's way, he can build his dream utopia. Let's see how he achieves this. Eggman decides to build the chemical plant over Dust Hill Zone, so he can dump its chemicals into the water as soon as they are made. The land that was destroyed from Wood Zone is re-terraformed so Eggman could build his casino zone where the forest once stood. Rock World and the destroyed city Metropolis are converted into Eggman's new headquarters, Genocide City, which stretches halfway across the map. Now that we can see the effects time has on the island throughout Sonic 2, we can talk about how the plot probably would have played out. Sega never gave us 100% rundown on how the plot would have been, but they did give us something that'll help us piece it together. As you can see, this describes how the game would have worked, except this is from a much earlier point in the game's development. We can tell this is from earlier on because there is a time period called the medieval time. This time period never made it out of the concept phase, so I'm going to ignore this time period altogether and rework this to fit the new level layout. With that now added in, and we have our current level layout, I am going to try to tell you how the plot probably would have played out. Sonic starts in the present time and he is on his way to stop Eggman, same as always. We would go through all the levels in the present time, and when we reached the final level, we would see Eggman, and it would turn out that it's a trap. Eggman would activate his time machine and he would use it to send Sonic forward in time. Not too far, but just far enough so Sonic can see the damage that he is doing to the island. This is where the destroyed present part of the plot would start. This plot line would actually go on to be used in the Fleetway comics, where Eggman would send Sonic forward into the future where he had already taken over the world, and Sonic would have to start a band of freedom fighters to overthrow Eggman's rule. This shows that this plot line is a serious thing that Sega had considered because they felt that it was good enough to recycle it in another Sonic media. You would soon realize that the time machine didn't just send you into the future, but it also sent you back to the beginning of the map. And now Green Hill is looking a lot more like Sand Hill, or should I say Dust Hill. While you were gone, Eggman used his machines to completely dry out Green Hill, and now it's just a sandy wasteland known as Dust Hill. I believe that this plot line would actually be recycled into Sonic Forces, where we see with the power of the Phantom Ruby, Eggman also turns Green Hill into what Sonic would like to call Sand Hill. Sonic would keep on running through the destruction Eggman has caused to the island until eventually he finds the time machine. Sonic hops into it and he is hoping that he can go back in time and reverse what Eggman has done to his home. Sonic does not know how to work the time machine, however, so instead of going back a few months, he goes all the way back to the ancient past, and this would start the ancient part of the plot. Sonic looks at how beautiful everything is, and he admires how the island looked before anybody began to change it. Sonic eventually finds Eggman, however, because Eggman has tracked him back to the past to be sure Sonic wouldn't ruin his plans. And Eggman puts Sonic yet again in the time machine and launches Sonic into the far future, well after he has had time to build his empire. This would lead to our final act, the future. Before we begin to talk about the future and wrap this plot up, I actually want to talk about one more possible Sonic Forces reference. There was a level in the past called Wood Zone, and as we can see in Eggman's future, he converted Wood Zone into Casino Night Zone, and we can see a very similar thing start to happen in Sonic Forces, where he's turned the forest into Casino Forest. I think this is yet again another reference to the scrapped elements of Sonic 2. How coincidental is it that Eggman is converting a forest into a casino? casino, and I'm sure if Eggman actually got to succeed in this, it would be another casino night zone. And now, with that possible reference out of the way, we can wrap up this story. Sonic looks at the now mechanized island. He is disgusted by the pollution and marvels at the casinos in the cities. He knows this isn't right. He knows he needs to find Eggman to fix all the damage that he's caused. Sonic ends up fighting Eggman for the final time. This fight would probably be held in Genocide City, which would probably be renamed to Cyber City, since there were no plans for the Death Egg at this point in development from what I've seen. Sonic would beat Eggman one last time, hop into the time machine, and this time it would send him back to the present before Eggman had destroyed it. And this time Sonic would destroy the time machine before Eggman could even end up using it. And this would be the good ending to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where everything goes back to normal and Eggman has no time machine. Sadly though, time travel would never make it into Sonic 2. Sonic 2 was instead just given a typical plot, just like Sonic 1, and they ended up introducing Tails. But a lot of these time mechanics would actually go on to be featured in Sonic CD, but of course the time travel would work a lot differently in Sonic CD. Instead of time machines, there were instead time posts and the time stones Eggman was using to travel throughout time. But a lot of the aspects actually did work into Sonic CD, that being that there is a good present, an ancient past, and destroyed future. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now today we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory, we are going to be looking at the character from Sonic Boom named Morpho, and we're going to figure out who he could possibly be and where he comes from. Let's get into this theory today on DHT. For those of you who don't know who Morpho is, let me catch you up on him. In Season 2 of Sonic Boom, this character appeared on Eggman's doorstep calling himself Steve Eggman, and he claimed to be Eggman's long-lost brother. Eggman was suspicious of him and turned him away, and he wanted to prove his worth to Eggman. So he pretended to save Sonic, and then pretended to befriend Sonic, and then he would turn into Sonic's friends by his shape-shifting powers, and slowly turn them against each other by making it appear that they all hated each other. This actually turned out to be successful, and he came and joined Eggman, and they were going to take down Sonic, but then Sonic and team beat them up. And that's all you need to know for his base introduction. Later on in the episode, he actually reveals to Eggman that he is not his brother, and that he is indeed a shape-shifting robot from another dimension that was created by another Eggman. And that Eggman ended up blowing up their dimension. This is very important because it will help us figure out who this robot could possibly be. Now, for those of you who want to know who I think this robot is, I personally think that this robot is another shape-shifting robot from another Sonic continuity. That continuity is the Fleetway continuity, and that robot is Metamorpha. Now, why do I think Metamorpha could be Morph? Well, first of all, look at their names. Metamorpha has Morph in her name. She could have easily shortened it down to Morph, or Morph could be a nickname she picked up over time. Second of all, you can compare the actions that both of them have done in their appearances. They both impersonated someone's brother. For Morph, she impersonated Sonic's brother, Tonic, who never existed and Sonic wasn't fooled by it for a second. And for Morph, he impersonated Eggman's brother, Steve, who Eggman knew never existed and it didn't fool him for a second. What's the odds that both of these robots would impersonate someone's brother and fail so hard at it? 3, they both have a fixation on Eggman. Metamorpha would constantly tell Eggman that she loved him, that she would do anything to impress him, and that she just wanted to make him happy. She was so fixated on him that she had drawings of him hung up in her room. We see very similar actions from Morpho. He put Eggman's logo on his chest when he was a superhero to show how much he admired Eggman. He has done so much to try to impress Eggman. He's even gotten close to Eggman's mom bot so he can be part of Eggman's family. He wants to be admired by Eggman, very similarly to how Metamorpho wanted to be admired by Dr. Robotnik in her dimension. And finally, this is the last comparison I have. It's a little out there, so I saved it for last. You don't have to consider this canon to the theory if you want to. This is just something I thought I would bring up. But both of them have impersonated green superheroes with a cape. For Metamorpha, she turned into Cosmic, a green hedgehog with a cape. And for Morpho, when he was trying to impress Team Sonic, he dressed in all green and he also had a cape. Now, this isn't very relevant to the theory, I just thought it was too similar to ignore. And I'm gonna tack one more thing to the crazy conspiracy theory part of the video. I think it's very weird that both of them have turned into tornadoes to transform. For Metamorpha, she did this once, and that's when she turned into her regular form to cosmic, or vice versa. For Morpho, every time he transforms, he turns into a tornado. I know that it's not consistent to prove that that's actually something that connects the two, but I did find it weird. Now, I know what you're going to be asking yourself. How did Metamorpha come into this universe when she's from the Fleetway comics? Well, Morpho explains it himself. He's from another dimension created by another Eggman who destroyed his dimension. Morpho is the last survivor of his dimension. He came to this one because his last one blew up. Now, I know some Fleetway elitists out there is gonna say, but Dr. Robotnik didn't create Metamorpho. Metamorpho is created by Grimer. I know Metamorpho is created by Grimer, but in the Fleetway comics, it was very common for Dr. Robotnik to just put his name on Grimer's inventions. He could have easily done this to Metamorpho to the point where she even thinks that he created her. Grimer is basically the Fleetway version of Snively. He constantly got shat on by Eggman, and Eggman would often take credit for his inventions. Another thing you could bring up to try to discredit my theory is the Fleetway continuity is still going. That's not true. The Fleetway continuity is over. What you can read online nowadays is a fan continuation, meaning that technically no matter what, even if writers from the original comic hop on board to write this, it's not official because it's not published by Fleetway or acknowledged by Sega, the actual rights holders. The Fleetway continuity still could have been blown up, but this fan continuity continued, just like what happened with the Archie continuity. One continuity ended, and then it continued with a fan comic. So canonically, the original Fleetway continuity still could have been blown up, and the fan comic would continue with or without the permission of Sega, just like what happened with the Archie comics. The Archie comics had the Genesis Wave, which rebooted everything, but now there's a fan comic continuing what happened before the Genesis Wave. I still feel there's one more thing I have to address before we can start to wrap up this theory though. How did this universe get blown up? Does Dr. Robotnik in the Fleetway continuity have the potential to blow up a universe? Well, actually yes. Way early on in the Fleetway continuity, Eggman actually obtained the Chaos Emeralds, and he had the ability to destroy the universe. That's easily what could have happened. Eggman could have got the emeralds again, and then chose to just end everything. Towards the end of the comics, Eggman lost all hope in life. He became depressed. He could hardly even move or talk. He was beaten by Sonic so many times he gave up. Who's to say that Eggman just didn't get the emeralds and chose to end it all? And Morpha is the only one that survived. So my final thoughts is, because of how similar they are and the fact that Sega won't confirm who Morpho is in Sonic Boom, I 100% believe that Morpho is Metamorpha from the Fleetway continuity. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now today we are going to be doing a theory, a Sonic theory. Today's Sonic theory, we are going to be answering the age-old question of how old are the classic Sonic characters and what is the age difference between the classic characters and the modern characters. If you're interested to find out what the answer to this question is, then stay tuned today on DHT. Now I know what you're thinking. Yes, I did this theory 2 years ago, and yes, that theory failed epically. The reason why it failed is I was guessing what ages the characters were, and I was trying to guess how long it would take in between games for these characters to age. And really, I shouldn't have done that. You should always stick to the canon in these theories. When you just start improvising, it becomes more a fan fiction and less of a theory. I'm not going to be doing that this time. This time we are sticking strictly to the game's canon, meaning that I will be guessing on nothing. Now, one thing I want to confirm right away is, does time pass in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe? I would say yes. Now, some people would be confused by this because in Sonic Forces, everyone starts calling classic Sonic, who is Sonic from the past, a Sonic from another dimension. Tails calls him this.
What? Oh, you're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you?
And Eggman calls him this.
You've got a lot of nerve for a fight Sonic from another dimension.
And I think I actually have an explanation for this. It's an explanation that I gave before. He is Sonic from the past. But because Sonic interfered with the past, that Sonic now knows his future. So chances are, him knowing his future has created a different set of events, and because the modern Sonic didn't just disappear or alter, that means that it possibly created a split timeline. And just like in Dragon Ball Z, split timelines can be called other dimensions or other universes, whatever you want to call it. So I'm fully convinced that when they say Sonic from another dimension, it's just a way to simplify time travel and split timelines. And I'm 100% convinced that this is the case because in Forces, modern Sonic references generations.
It's been generations since I've seen you.
Meaning that Generations is still canon. And in Generations, Tails says that they were traveling through time and space.
I can't believe there's two of me.
I think I figured it out. Yeah, me too. Doubles of us? Places and enemies from our past? We're traveling through time and space!
If it was other dimensions, Tails would have specified that. Instead, he said time and space. Not to mention, Tails clearly has memories of what happened to him in Chemical Plant Zone, which was Sonic the Hedgehog 2, meaning that he remembers memories from his classic self.
Sonic!
Tails!
This chemical plant feels familiar. I'd never forget a smell like this. And that pink water makes me really nervous for some reason.
This proves 100% that the past did happen and that the modern characters are older versions of the younger characters. Sonic even says, "Your future is gonna be great" to classic Sonic.
Hey, Sonic! Enjoy your future! It's gonna be great!
Meaning that he knows that time does pass and he knows that this is a younger version of himself. It's also shown at the end of the game that Eggman shares memories with Robotnik too, and what is Eggman's past is definitely gonna be Robotnik's future.
Let me just say that this was a brilliant plan that you came up with. Don't get too self-righteous. It'll be your plan pretty soon. I'm gonna dedicate the rest of my life to forgetting it. I heard that! Do we ever win? That depends on your definition of win. Beating Sonic? Oh, well then no. That doesn't give me much hope. Maybe I'll go back and get my teaching degree. That's not a bad idea. I've always enjoyed telling people what to do.
I really doubt that they would put in all these callback lines and all of these references to the past and specifically say past if the game itself wasn't about time travel. We know that Generations is canon, and we know Generations involves time travel, and we know in Generations that everyone is calling that younger Sonic. They're calling that younger Robotnik. They all know who each other are, and they all know that they are from the past and the future. So now, since I've basically summed over Generations and Forces, and I've confirmed 100% that time does work in the Sonic universe and characters have age, you're probably wondering, how am I gonna prove what their ages are? Am I gonna guess again? No, I'm not. I actually have a 100% way to see how old all the characters are in the past games, and the key to finding out is actually a character you wouldn't expect. So not to tease you any further, I'm just gonna tell you straight away how I know this. In Sonic the Hedgehog, one character mysteriously aged for no reason in particular. That character is Amy Rose. When Amy Rose was introduced to the game franchise, she was 8 years old. Amy Rose in her debut game was 8. But then, in Sonic Adventure, Amy mysteriously became 12 years old. Now, at the time, we just assumed that this is a retcon and that we should just consider her 12 years old from now on. But in reality, this proves that there was a 4-year difference between the classic games and the modern games. meaning that if we take the age difference that Amy has from her past counterpart, we can add that to all the Sonic characters to find out the ages of their past counterparts. So now we're going to take the canon age of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is 15, minus 4, and he is 11. We take the canon age of Tails, minus 4, and now he becomes 4 years old because he's 8 in the modern games. We take the canon age of Knuckles, who is 16, and he now becomes 12. And if we really want to throw in a few more characters, we could throw in Ray and Mighty. Now Mighty has a set age. That age is 17, so we can turn him into 13 in the classic games, meaning in Mania Plus he would be 13 years old. Ray's age is actually unknown, and the only proof that we have is the comics, so you can either consider this part of the theory or not, because canonically Ray doesn't have an age, but in the comics it says that he's 10 years old, meaning that in Mania Plus Ray would be 6. That's where my theory went wrong before. I didn't focus in on Amy Rose. I didn't focus in on her age mysteriously changing. I just ignored that and I started trying to guess what their ages were. And that's the mistake everyone has been making. There is always a canon way to figure out how old the classic characters are, and that's of an age difference of 4. You can do this with any character that has a canon age in Sonic the Hedgehog in the modern games, and you can figure out what age their classic selves would be. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now today we are going to be doing the thing that made manga common famous. We are going to be bullying MatPat. No, I'm just kidding, but you've already seen the title, so you know what we're going to be doing here. I'm going to be responding to one of MatPat's videos, and really the video isn't too bad, it's just something he tacked on at the end is really bad. So let's get into this today on DHT. Now, like I said in the intro, I didn't hate this video. I actually really did like this video. It was well researched. I'm glad that MatPat took in the calculations for every version of Sonic and every game that Sonic had been in, all the classic games, and he tested the skidding speeds of these Sonics to see if it would actually break his bones. All of the research was sound and all the conclusions made sense to me, and the main conclusion is in all of the games that MatPat calculated, Sonic wouldn't be able to break his bones. He's skidding at a certain speed to where no matter what he would be safe. It's the part after the video that really bothers me. Let me just play the clip so you can see what's wrong here.
It just turns out in the games, whether the designers meant to or not, they made Sonic 1 light enough, 2 slow enough, and 3 gave him enough stopping distance to slow him down in a safe manner. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it looks like Sonic got me. Or did he? I measured his speed in a variety of 2D games using a variety of speed boosters. But what if Sonic is truly able to roll around at the speed of sound like his song indicates? It turns out that if you run the numbers, the stopping distance for Sonic is going to be about 69 meters, and the force of the stop would be 29,842 newtons. 30,000 newtons, which is more than enough to shatter most of the bones in Sonic's body. Huzzah! And yes, that's the sound of me celebrating a fictional hedgehog breaking every single bone in his body. Because here's the long story short. If Sonic truly lived up to his own hype, he'd be completely debilitated every time he tried to stop. So it's here, loyal theorists, that I leave you with a choice. Either Sonic destroys his body every time he fires up his top speeds, or we can just agree that Sonic is slow.
You heard that from MatPat himself. He straight up says that he took Sonic's speed if he was running at the speed of sound and then adjusted it for the current skid rate, meaning that he added a whole different variable into the video game's numbers. How can you do this, MatPat? How can you take Sonic running at the speed of sound and plug it into the adjustments in a game? Now, assuming that Sonic would be a living being like you do in these videos, because there'd be no way that he could run at the speed of sound and it be a video game, Sonic, if he was running at these speeds, he would actually adjust his speed so he wouldn't hurt himself. He's done it in every other game, so why wouldn't he do it now? It would take him longer to stop, but he definitely could adjust his speed to stop. We've seen him do this numerous amount of times in the comics. He'll slowly skid to a stop at a certain rate to where he won't harm himself. Sonic isn't out of control, and the games where he actually does run at the speed of sound, it is hard for him to control himself. In mock speed sections like in in Sonic 06, you'll go flying about everywhere. But even when Sonic gets hit in Mach speed sections in Sonic 06, his knees aren't buckling down. He turns his body in such a way to where it actually impacts his whole body. So yeah, he would still be bruised and injured, but he's still taking into consideration that his feet would get hurt if he suddenly stopped like that. Sonic is aware of the speeds he's running at. The game developers are aware of the speeds Sonic is running at. They have programmed him in such a way, and it seems like to me that this is just you trying to prove your old theory correct, that Sonic can't run faster than the speed of sound, and you've somehow taken that theory and mixed it with this actually good theory, and in return you've ruined this theory and brought up how shit your original theory was. In the game, Sonic will never run at the speed of sound because it's unplayable. It's not fun. That is your answer, Matt Pat. And the answer to can Sonic break his legs in the games? No, you already answered that question. You can't just take your theories and mash them together and try to get some outcome that you want to happen. This isn't some ultimatum you get to set up. At the end of the day, if Sonic was to run at the speed of sound, like he has done in the comic books, he would be able to slow himself down at such a rate to where he wouldn't tear his body apart. He's not dumb. He's been running at these speeds for years. I'm sure he would adjust it. I just didn't like that you took Sonic's skid rate from the video games and plugged it into some random fucking number. That makes no sense at all, and it seems like you were just trying to prove an unpopular theory correct. And now I know what some people will say. Some people will be like, Dylan, this was a joke. Matt Pat was joking. I'm just gonna say this. It wasn't a joke. Matt Pat is very sensitive about his theories.
First was Sans' Nest, a theory I was so excited to share with you. In fact, it was one of, if not my favorite episode that we had done of game theory to date, but the overwhelming negativity and ridicule that video got was just crushing.
And whenever he thinks he is right, he really wants to shove it in people's face.
Did you see the news? Nintendo confirmed that Mario is punching Yoshi in the head. According to character designer for Super Mario World, Shigefumi Hino, quote, lots of people think that while Mario is pointing his finger forward, he's saying go, and Yoshi's tongue comes out. However, the setup that I drew was that when Mario punches Yoshi in the head, the character's tongue shoots out in surprise. What's more, there's an added bop sound. End quote. Man, between this and Scott confirming last week's FNAF theory, these are good days to be a theorist.
This is the real Matt Pat. I don't hate him for this. I just think that his ego gets in the way sometimes, and he needs to be called out when his ego does get in the way. Hello everybody, Dylan here. Now, a couple years ago, for the Halloween special of that year, I decided to do a Sonic theory which was Halloween themed. That was the Sonic.exe theory. In that video, I ended up explaining the misconceptions with Sonic.exe and then what Sonic.exe actually was. This year I'm going to be doing the same. The Sonic urban legend we're going to be talking about this time is Genocide City. I'm really excited to talk about this, so let's get into this today on DHT. Now, for those of you who do not know this, there was a lot of levels in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 that were removed. The main reason why these levels were removed is because Sega was working with deadlines and Sonic Team had to get the game done at a certain time, meaning that certain levels just had to be removed because they were unfinished. These levels were Wood Zone, Hidden Palace Zone, and of course Genocide City Zone. Now, Genocide City Zone was a real level, believe it or not, and I will explain the truth behind the name and the truth behind everything later. Right now we're just going to be talking about the crazy conspiracy part, and we're going to be talking about the creepypasta and the fan interpretation before I actually tell you what became of Genocide City. Now, the urban legend goes someone was able to get their hands on a Sonic 2 beta, and in this beta they were able to play several zones that were never finished and never released, and when they played through the game everything turned out fine because they got all the Chaos Emeralds and they ended up saving Tails, who was about to be shot by Eggman. Now, what they ended up doing was they were curious what would happen if they didn't get the emeralds. And when they didn't get the emeralds, Tails ended up getting shot by Eggman and died. It was when Tails was killed by Eggman that instead of going just to Metropolis Zone, they were sent to Genocide City Zone. And in Genocide City Zone, everything was brutal murder, blah blah blah. Now, when they booted up the game, Tails wouldn't appear, and they could never get Tails back, and this is when the whole story just gets even more ridiculous. It even goes to the point where the author is hallucinating that Tails isn't there, and even when he loads up his cartridge, Tails is still gone, just like in the urban legend. I don't know why some people believe this, but let me just tell you some of the obvious problems that are wrong with this story. First of all, it was the prototype where the levels were even found to begin with, and in the prototype, you can't even access Genocide City Zone. It just loads in as a bunch of green lines on a blue background, and you instantly fall to your death. If Sega had a fully playable Genocide City, it would have been in the game. It wasn't a thing, it wasn't fully finished, that's why it just became Metropolis Act 3. And if Sega did have all these other levels, why wouldn't they get in? Why would Sega finish these levels, finish a plot, finish some random cutscenes, and then just leave it out? It makes absolutely no sense. This story is based with no logic. I don't know why anyone even believes it to begin with. Now, something else I want to talk about is the fan interpretations of Genocide City Zone. I really like what the fans have done with Genocide City Zone. There was a Sonic Mania mod that ended up just making it Chemical Plant slightly changed. That one wasn't very creative. There was a mock-up where they took random Ghost and Ghoul sprites and tried to make it look creepy, and I think that's a bit too far. But then there was the Sonic 2 extended version, or the long version, where they actually made a Genocide City Zone where it's pretty cool. I like the creepy-esque background. I like how it's kind of a Halloween-themed level. I really like these fan interpretations of Genocide City Zone, and I find it interesting that none of these fan interpretations of Genocide City Zone is actually anything close to Genocide City Zone. So now, let me tell you what the real Genocide City Zone was like. Genocide City was a real level, and it was supposed to come after Metropolis Act 2. This was an actual thing that was going to happen. If you look at this Sonic 2 map, you can see that Genocide City is listed. This is something they actually wanted to do, but something I don't hear talked about too often and didn't even get brought up in the creepypasta at all because this would ruin their whole story. Genocide City was actually just a translation issue. A lot of the people who worked on Sonic 2 were Japanese, and then they really didn't know English, so they thought genocide sounded cool, so that's what they named the city. They didn't actually know the name of it, and once the name was pointed out to them, it was renamed to Cyber City, and Cyber City is the name it would have had if it was ever to be finished. So now I bet you're wondering, what was Genocide City going to be like? Well, I can actually tell you that. Genocide City was recycled into Metropolis Act 3. Originally, Genocide City, or Cyber City, was going to be a one-act zone, very similar to Sky Chase. This isn't an uncommon thing in the Sonic franchise, and this level ended up being scrapped before any of the music was worked on or before the backgrounds were even finalized. That's why they just changed the background to Metropolis's and gave it Metropolis's theme. Metropolis is the only zone in the game that has 3 acts to it, and that's because this stage was scrapped. Now, what did this stage look like? We can also answer that. The assets of this level ended up being recycled into Sonic Spinball. The level called The Machine uses the background that was originally going to be in Cyber City, and as we can see, it has weird circuit boards as the background. It was going to be a very cybernetic looking level. I really like how this level looks like, and it kind of reminds me of some of the older Sonic 1 art that I've seen before. And lucky for us, Sonic Team actually had a sketch made for this level, so let's take a look at that and see what could have been of Cyber City. City. The first thing I noticed is that the level is actually labeled as Cyber City, disproving the creepypasta once and for all. The creepypasta said that it was still being called Genocide City all the way up until the beta, when no, even when these levels were being sketched up, it was being called Cyber City, meaning that if there was a mysterious beta out there, it would be called Cyber City, not Genocide City. And another thing I noticed is this is strikingly similar to the Level the Machine from Sonic Spinball, which some of the assets were worked into. But weirdly enough, a lot of the level layout appears to be from the Sonic Spinball level as well. This was actually going to be a more pinball-esque level. We can see a flipper on the top left corner that would shoot Sonic into a certain direction. We can see a little pump that Sonic would load himself into, and then it would shoot him up through a tube, just like in Casino Night. It was weird that they were gonna have yet again another pinball-esque level in Sonic 2, seeing how Casino Night was already the pinball level for the game. And I think it's very fitting that this would be recycled into a Sonic Spinball level, seeing how pinball was going to play a part in it to begin with. We can see that the hazard lines were here already, and the cybernetics were already designed to be the background. Everything here was worked into the machine. So yet again, I would have to say, if you want the real authentic experience of playing Cyber City Zone, don't go for the ROM hacks, don't go for the Sonic Mania mod, play Sonic Spinball and get to the Level the Machine. This actually uses concept art and level design from the original Cyber City Zone. There's also the Sonic Lost Worlds hack, which adds in Cyber City, and that is the truth behind yet again another Sonic the Hedgehog urban legend. What people thought was going to be a spooky level full of dead bodies and creepiness was actually just going to be a cybernetic pinball level. So we just got a new Smash Direct, and in the Smash Direct we didn't get Tails announced, we didn't get Shadow announced. It was pretty disappointing seeing that yet again they will be reduced to just add-ons to Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic's gonna be the only Sonic character in Smash. But we actually did get something interesting involving Sonic, and that is a cutscene from the game, and it's created more misconceptions. So let's talk about this today on DHT. This is the only spoiler warning I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna be revealing some elements of the plot, and we are gonna be talking about a cutscene from the game. So if you care about spoilers, you might want to click off of the video right now. In the trailer we saw a bunch of master hands were coming from the sky from this mysterious object, and then they start shooting off beams that start wiping out all of the Nintendo characters, all the video game characters that are gathered there. Now you would be thinking Sonic can outrun this beam, and that's what I thought originally too. But unfortunately Sonic ends up getting striked down along with everyone else, and some people have used this to say that Sonic is slow. And we've seen this done before. When Sonic was beat up by Infinite, people were saying that he was slow. Everyone always wants to go the MatPat way of thinking that Sonic is slower than what he is, and I don't believe that this scene shows Sonic actually being slow, and I think there is a way to explain why he got hit. The first thing I want to bring up is the Sonic the Hedgehog you see in this cutscene is not actually the Sonic the Hedgehog. For those of you who don't know this, everybody that is portrayed in Smash Bros. Is not the canon version of that character. They are in fact toys that get brought to life by the player. They still act like the character they're supposed to be, and they still have similar feats and abilities to the characters that they represent, but they are not that character. The things that happen in Smash Bros. Are not canon to Sonic, Mario, Zelda, or any other franchise that is represented in Smash Bros. These are just toys being played with by the player. So there's no reason for the Sonic the Hedgehog in here to have the exact same speed as the Sonic the Hedgehog in the video games or the Sonic the Hedgehog in the comics, seeing how this isn't Sonic. It'd be just like me playing with an action figure. You can't expect it to be as fast and as capable as the real Sonic. you really shouldn't take anyone seriously. It tries to use the feats and the stats from the Smash Bros. Sonic the Hedgehog, because everyone who's actually played Smash Bros. Knows that that Sonic has nothing to do with the video game Sonic. If this Sonic chooses to be slow, that doesn't mean the video game Sonic is slow, seeing how this is just a toy made to imitate the real Sonic the Hedgehog. I could just leave it at that, say that this isn't the real Sonic and be done with it, but I'm gonna go and explain a little bit further how he really couldn't avoid this fate and how this happened to begin with. Now, when everyone else was getting blasted, most of the other heroes were either trying to fight the beams, block the beams, hide from the beams. They were all just doing their own thing. Sonic was still trying to help save people all the way up until the end, unlike other people who were gathered here. Sonic slowed down to try to grab Pikachu so then he could run off and save his friend. And by slowing down, he saw Pikachu get hit, then he got hit. Now, if Sonic didn't choose to slow down, could he escape these beams? No. This fate was unavoidable. As we see, even if Sonic was able to outrun the beam, which I think he could, the whole planet would get blasted. The whole universe would get blasted. And I really doubt that this Sonic the Hedgehog would be fast enough to warp into another dimension. No matter what, he would get wiped out. No other character there had the ability to escape but Kirby. The only reason why Kirby was able to avoid this is because he had the Warp Star. The Warp Star has the ability to travel through space at ridiculous speeds and travel to other worlds. Using the Warp Star, he was able to teleport out of there and avoid getting hit. That's the reason why Kirby survived and no one else did. And that's all I really have to say about this situation. Now, I know for the most part these are just memes and people are just having fun, but unfortunately some kids out there will take this as canon and cause misconceptions that I'll have to clear up years down the line anyway. So I just thought I would make a video now stating that this isn't Sonic the Hedgehog, but even though this isn't the canon Sonic the Hedgehog, this Sonic the Hedgehog still gave his life to help others, and that I can at least respect. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you really like it, share it, and if you want to see more content like this, then subscribe. I'm really interested in what you have to say about this trailer, so comment what you thought of this trailer down below. Thank you guys for watching, and bye.